It's a night in with Mauler and the drinker, getting trashed with the web screen thinkers. A cheap night cause I'm feeling kinda thrifty, got a 10-pack of beers and a bottle of whiskey. Hop up the cork, have a glass of wine, pass they'll say I'll be fine. Trouble walking in a straight line, but pour me a Pinot Noir. It's open bar with our hosts, Mauler and the critical drinker.
All right, we are here and late as always, so it's a perfect start to an open bar. Yeah,
Beautiful.
you know, start times are just a guideline anyway. What can I say?
Yeah, estimation. They're like I don't know, some person looking into the future and being like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Well, it's best efforts, isn't it? Yeah, if you can get there on time, great. If not, doesn't matter. We'll catch up at some point anyway. But we are here, and that's the important part. So, well, I guess we should begin, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. Welcome our first guest tonight, the Critical Doggo. Hey, dog.
Hello. Long-time fan.
Yeah, people kept asking, like, ever since I've done this new setup here, you can't really see the dogs. So, yeah, I decided to give her her own webcam, and she can contribute as much as she wants, or as little as she wants.
Shy. That's okay. First time.
I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, people get nerves the first time they do live streaming, and so you know, you might not get a huge amount out of her, but well, she's there. So
Yeah.
anyway, we have also got TheLittlePlatoon. Hello, sir.
Good evening. Not as exciting as the Critical Doggo, admittedly, but happy to be here.
Hopefully, your banter's going to be better at least.
Not as shy.
You'll be slightly more conscious than the doggo is.
Well, for the first 10 minutes at least, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
really
that
wanted
wine's
to
got to
know
go somewhere.
what the dogger's opinion on Ant-Man was, but I guess, never mind. It's fine. Maybe Shazam.
I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, really, doesn't it? Like, that's what you see is the opinion. Like, did you enjoy Ant-Man? Well, I literally passed out, you know? That was like me in the cinema. It was the best I could do. But hey, we've also got Razorfist joining us in a minute, and hopefully Rakita Law is also going to be with us. So yeah, this is what we got so far, and we didn't want to keep you guys waiting any longer. So we thought, what the hell? We'll just start the show. You know, I'm pretty sure between the four of us, we can keep the party going. I reckon. There is a few things that we were going to cover tonight. We've got the delights of the Marvels trailer.
Yeah.
Finally.
We've got great news. Captain Marvel's coming back. Rey's coming back to Star Wars. Indiana Jones has got a new trailer and it looks horrible. But I was going to just start, and it's definitely
one of them
not
what
us.
year is it moments, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. It's like we're talking about Captain Marvel, we're talking about Rey Skywalker again. It's like,
And Indiana
damn,
Jones, yeah, it's like, what the fuck?
it's 2019 again. Hey.
Well, it's good. I wasn't on YouTube in 2019, so I'm glad that I get a 2019 to have a proper go at. So
This is
I'm
your
kind of looking forward
redo.
to both of these. Yeah.
Yeah, you can have another go at it. It's great. But before we do that, there was something that kicked off last night, and it really tickled my fancy. And I thought, I don't normally cover stuff like this on this channel, but it made me laugh. And it was a BBC reporter stopped by Twitter HQ to have a chat with Elon Musk, and really, yeah, being a BBC reporter, thought I'm gonna get this guy. It's gonna be my gotcha moment. You know, this is my chance. I'm gonna win a Pulitzer for this one. I'm gonna catch this guy off guard and get some real dirt. And it didn't quite play out the way he'd expected. And I guess I can just I can let you guys be the judges of how this conversation went down. So allow me to play it a little bit for you.
People very recently who were involved in moderation, and they just say there's not enough people to police this stuff, particularly around hate speech in the company. Is that something that you want to address?
Talking about? I mean, you use Twitter.
Right.
Do you see a rise in hate speech?
I mean,
But just a personal anecdote, like what do you do? I don't.
Personally, my for you, I would see I get more of that kind of content. Yeah, personally.
That's why I'm asking for examples. Can you name one example?
I honestly don't use. I
This is the moment where it starts to go horrendously wrong. I think this is the point where he realized I really should have prepared a bit better for this interview.
It's so weird, though. You could just make one up. It's not like It's not like he's asking you to print it out and show it to him or anything.
You could literally just, do a bit of scrolling, find a couple of tweets that were really bad,
Really
just take
mean.
some screenshots, something, yeah. And it's like, okay, cool, here's a couple of examples for you. Because inevitably someone is going to ask for an example. Or they're going to at least ask for some kind of evidence. You can't just go in and say something like that. And
I assume what Elon was going to do here was that if the guy named, like, I just now saw some guy say homophobic things, he'd be like, oh, well, that's not very common, or there's loads of responses you could have to it, right? It's just one asshole. Human free speech allows him to do all that. Or even, depending on how bad it was, he could have been like, yeah, report it. Report it and we'll deal with it. Like, we'll try.
Yeah.
Our team isn't fucking God. We can't find it. But, like, you can't even fucking name one. Like...
It was great, and it's like, well, you could imagine being in that situation, right? And it's like, oh, I'll try and find an example on my phone. It's like, oh no, the YouTube app's, the Twitter app's loading really slowly. I'm trying to scroll through. Oh fuck, Elon Musk is sitting here waiting. What have I got? But yeah, like you say, you could have had something prepared in advance. I just want to see where this goes as well. Bear with me.
Can't name a single example.
I'll tell you why, because I don't actually use that for you feed anymore, because I just don't particularly like it. I only look at...
See, this is a bit of a problem as well, where it's like, yeah, the For You feed, I find that there's a lot of hate speech on it. All right, cool, give me an example. Well, I don't use the For You tab anymore. It's like, well, okay. You don't
You're not
use
exactly
the very...
a good authority of what's happening there if you have no idea what it is anymore. Like,
It really is shitty. Like, I was a journalist in a past life of 18 months ago, however long it was since I quit the job. You turn up to interviews, you do basic preparation, but also as a journalist, certainly if you have any kind of self-respect, which given the guy works for the BBC as a tech reporter, he probably doesn't, but if you have any kind of self-respect, it's your job to ask people for evidence. You're supposed to expect a standard of evidence to be applied one way or another. If you as the journalist are making the evidence-free claim and you're being asked by your interviewee to cite evidence to back up your own claim, and you can't do it, you have no business being a journalist at the BBC. You have no business interviewing any kind of semi-sentient person. You should be really photoshopping tits on the page of the Daily Sport. But this guy and just watching him stumble around to try and excuse his own lack of preparation, it's like made me ashamed to have been a journalist, but at the same time now I'm not one anymore. It was very funny.
Well, you can hear by how hesitant he is and how much he stumbles over his words, like how rattled he is by this whole thing, and you just think, God damn, you're a journalist. You're supposed to be good at interviewing people and doing combative interviews as well, like where the person's not going to be very cooperative. You should have something up your sleeve to cope with this stuff.
well, man, journalists at their best are surgeons. Like, they know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
hey, Razorfist.
Andrew Neil's a good example of that.
Hey, dude.
Hey, everyone.
man.
Thanks for having me.
No, cool, man.
You caught that little bit of magic too, did you?
Oh, it's beautiful, yeah. We're just playing the remainder of the clip. Bear with me a second. We can just enjoy it.
I think, is Razor on the right mic? He sounds a bit,
Yeah, you're a bit, I don't know if you're coming through your webcam, maybe.
Let me fix that.
Could be.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep, there we go. Sorry about that.
There you go.
All right, perfect. All right, cool. I'll play a little bit more of this just for your enjoyment.
You said you've seen more hateful content, but you can't name a single example, not even one.
I'm not sure I've used that feed for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and
Well, then how did you see the hateful content?
Because I've been using Twitter since you've taken it over for the last 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen the For You hateful content. I'm asking for one example.
Right.
You can't give a single one.
And I'm saying...
I say, sir, that you don't know what you're talking about.
It's pretty straightforward, There's not much else to it.
Because I think, I don't know if it's all included in this clip, but like when Elon asked him, give a sort of definition for hateful content, and the guy again stumbled over his words and could barely get anything out. But his general gist was like, well, things that might be perceived as slightly sexist or slightly racist.
Yeah.
And Elon was like, well, how exactly does that qualify as hateful? That's just like, that's just people.
It's the presumption of censorship as well, which is something that, because I studied to do a master's in journalism at City, which brands itself the Oxbridge of journalism, even though the Oxbridge of journalism is actually Oxbridge. And I remember being in a lecture when we were talking about it was like, I think it was talking about the Charlie Hebdo cartoons and other equivalent content that causes grave offense, and should we or should we not be allowed to publish that stuff. And it was kind of shocking to be in a room of people who are going to go on to be the next generation of journalists, to find that by a clear majority, they favoured self-censorship first for fear of causing offence. And the same as this guy does, the presumption is in favour of censorship. Slightly hateful conduct is worthy of some unnamed faceless bureaucrat or tech whiz taking you offline and stifling your freedom of speech and expression. I keep having to point out to people, as I did in that class, you are a journalist. Your job requires free speech. It requires a First Amendment guarantee in the United States. You don't get to censor people that you don't like and expect that people won't do the same to you. But the way journalism is going is that they are really becoming censors in chief as opposed to the speakers of truth to power.
Yeah, you're speaking my language. I actually attended a pretty prominent journalism school in America, and I wound up leaving after I don't know if I've told this anecdote on the open bar, but we had, I mean, this was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, but I was in a class and the assignment was to editorialize. They were literally telling you to editorialize.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, we were supposed to pick, I forget what it was, but I picked a municipal issue. And I kept handing in this assignment to the professor over and over again. And they kept sending it back to me with red marks all over it. And I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll get back on the horse and keep trying. I tried this 3 or 4 times, and finally I go up to the professor. I'm like, hey, what is going on? Like, what am I doing wrong with this? Whatever. Well, the problem is that you've slanted this in a hateful kind of way, or like an insensitive, I forget exactly what her terminology was, but basically the gist of it was an indelicate sort of way. And I'm kind of scratching my head, like, what are you talking? It's an editorial. Like, I have to proffer an opinion. Finally, she just came right out with it, and she was like, look, if you're going to slant a sort of report, then you have to slant it. In so many words, she said, you have to slant it to the left because that's the most inclusive way to slant editorial. And I was like, what? Okay, so we're doing something entirely different from what I thought we were doing here. And that was sort of the beginning of the precipitous end for me in journalism school at the end of but I completely see what you're talking about, man. Once you meet people who are going to these journalism schools and break bread with some of the professors, you realize what's really happening is not people proffer all these conspiracy theories about this directed misinformation or that. It's like, you don't understand. These people are all screwing the same people and attending the same cocktail parties.
Mm-hmm.
Like they do. They have a gilded bubble around them and through which no countervailing opinion can penetrate. That's really what's going on.
I think it's funny because Elon's been kind of at war with the BBC over the past several days because he got it labeled as a government-funded organization, which they did not appreciate in the slightest, but it's 100% true. It's like, what do you think the license fee is? It's just government funding for your TV organization, and it's done on the proviso that you are politically neutral. That was the whole cornerstone of what the BBC is supposed to be. It's supposed to be 100% neutral, squeaky clean journalism, but it clearly isn't anymore, and it hasn't been for quite some time. And you get guys like this who come in with a clear bias, who are just there to try and get their gotcha moment, and well, as we see here, it's about to go. Well, it has gone horrendously wrong. I'll play the remainder of this clip because there's only a few seconds left.
Really?
Yes, because you can't give me a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet, and yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well,
that's false. People will say all sorts of nonsense. I'm literally asking for a single example. You can name one.
Right, and as I've already said, I don't use that feed. But
how would you know that?
I don't think this is getting anywhere.
You literally said you experienced more hateful content
anyway,
and then couldn't name a single example.
Right, and as I said,
that's absurd.
I haven't actually looked at that feed.
Then how would you know there's hateful content?
Because I'm saying that's what I saw a few weeks ago.
All right, we'll just take your word for it then.
Let's move on.
Let's move. That's it. Yeah, let's move on. It's like you bent me over a table and absolutely had your way with me. Let's just get past this. That's all it is. I actually saw a tweet from that guy today. He put up the whole interview with a big long Twitter thread saying, "Wow, that was a crazy interview. Can't believe how much attention it's got." It's like that's a defiant L if ever I saw one, man.
And he listed all the stories that like his friends, presumably at the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Guardian had written up about it. The things that he considered to be substantive parts of the interview. And the one thing he left out and didn't quote anything from is the one thing that everyone on Twitter was talking about after that, which is BBC journalist got owned by Elon Musk. But no, he got favourable write-ups from The Guardian. He can share those, but nothing that damages his own reputation.
Hey, maybe
Well, you know,
he'll
if the-
become,
if
like, a good journalist from now on after that experience, he'd be like, "Shit, I better have examples next time." Huh?
It's like, yeah, the most basic elements of journalism. Yeah, if you're gonna cite something, if you're gonna make a claim, you should probably back it up with evidence. It's crazy, I know, but there you go.
You'd have thought they taught him that at some point, but nah. Who needs it?
Yeah, but there you go. But hey ho, well, that was a nice little palate cleanser for us to start the open bar.
Right.
Did you see the same thing happen to NPR, and now they're doing it, and PBS now, and it's stateside, they're all doing it.
NPR was a bizarre one. NPR kicked up such a fuss, and then it said, well, we're leaving because you've branded us government-funded media. If you go to NPR's page, it says, we rely on federal funds. Federal funds are vital for the job that we do. So, like, what are you complaining about? The BBC's complaint was, you said we're government-funded, we're not government-funded, we're publicly funded, which is kind of a way of saying the same thing, and the license fee is backed up by the government, and you will go to prison if you don't pay it. So, it's... these people just... I hate them all.
I do like that. We're funded by the public. It goes through another entity, but still.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, the government forced the public to fund us, but, you know, what can we say? It's not the same thing, though. Definitely not. Yeah, it's stuff like this that's just like the legacy media is fucking dead, man. It's dead. Nobody takes them seriously.
Oh, pardon me. They torpedoed their credibility. What, you know, waning rivulets they may have had of credibility in 2016, and it's like they have spent every year since being utterly, indefatigably determined not to pull out of this death spiral. Like, that's 100% what they've done. If anything, it's intensified, right? They are unconcerned with whether or not there will ever be kind of that veneer we used to have many, many years ago of impartiality of any kind. I mean, we're just talking about NPR. They have a show called All Things Considered that will consider absolutely anything except for a political idea right of Chairman Mao. Right, that's literally what NPR is by definition. It's absurd. Like I said, it's a bubble. If once you understand that, there doesn't need to be a conspiracy. There doesn't need to be, you know, any backstage directives. It reminds me of the story years and years ago. Whatever you think of Bill O'Reilly, this was a really, really good point. Years ago, of course, there were accusations of Fox News being biased on account of they are, right? And CNN had this report and that report, and then there was a memo uncovered at some point, some sort of memo that actually was relating to some editorial program at Fox, and it was like, you have to spin this story in this direction. It's like, okay, I don't think that's exactly a smoking gun. We can all see that the network is biased to the right? Mm-hmm. But then Bill O'Reilly pointed out, okay, he got on the air and he made a really, really good point. He was like, what's worse? Us having to write that memo, or the fact that CNN, ABC, NBC, none of them have to write that memo because they're all in perfect accord on every single socio-political issue of the day, just as part of some mass Borg hive mind. And it's a good point. Again, whatever you think of O'Reilly, at the end of the day, they all come from the same place.
Well, when I was talking there as well about like the legacy media and like establishment access media, I think is what Gary calls them. Like it filters over into the world of entertainment 100%. For example, this little tweet that Screen Rant put out today regarding the Predator franchise, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with to some extent. The Predator franchise has featured many different human protagonists. We're going to run down the survivors of the Predator movies from best to worst. Oh, no. I'll give you one fucking guess who won it. It wasn't Dutch from the original Predator, I'll tell you that much.
Jeffrey Epstein.
She's a Native American, and
who's
she's
at the bottom of the list. Fucking Ani.
Hold on. Rory and Beckett from The Predator.
Oh, well, that's okay.
Basically, the whole cast of The Predator
Yeah,
are considered the
about to
lowest
say,
ones.
you know what? There's some fairness to that. I'll give him.
But yeah, it goes Naru from Prey, Dutch from Predator, Royce and Isabel from Predators, Mike Harrigan from Predator 2, and Alexa Woods from Alien vs Predator, and then it's pretty much into obscure territory from then on.
The funny thing about that list is if you take her from the very top of it, it's a perfectly normal list. If you just move
Yes.
everyone up, it's a.
Yep.
It's like they made a normal list and then they said, "And now we're gonna do this." Put
Yep.
her on top of it.
I'd maybe even put Harrigan at the top, just because of the fact that he's a out of shape middle-aged cop, and he takes on a fucking predator and wins.
That movie's boss. I don't
It is,
care. He was
it is a terrible sign, though, for whatever you choose to call them, access media, legacy media, anything like that. If you can see the headline of the thing, and you can see who it's from, and you already know exactly what it's going to say. Like, I don't need to read a Guardian review of a film that's good, or a New York Times review of a film that's good. I already know what their line will be on it. And likewise, I mean, the BBC journalist from earlier looks like the kind of person who would unironically look forward to seeing The Marvels, for example. And you can tell that when that film comes out, that will be really popular at the BBC and nowhere else.
Yeah.
Well, sounds like a hater to me. I'm excited for Marvels.
Well, that's a great little segue, actually. The Marvels trailer dropped just a couple of days ago. I don't know about you guys, but I am really excited about that movie. I can't wait to see it in November.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be quite the experience.
I like that people make memes about, like, does anyone even know who Miss Marvel is for a show, or the... See, I'm already struggling. The girl from WandaVision, and it's like, dude, who knows who fucking Captain Marvel is?
Monica Rambeau.
She showed up in Endgame briefly, you know, Captain Marvel, I mean, and then of the people who saw her movie, how many people even remember the plotline? Seriously doubt it.
Least of all, Brie Larson.
Exactly.
I think the past 4 years has been like the most subtle walk back in cinema history, where it's like they launched her movie with all these bold plans that she was going to be the face of Marvel going forward. It's like, basically, forget Iron Man now. It's going to be Captain Marvel. She's going to be leading the Avengers. And then, like, the insane backlash to that character hit, and suddenly it's like, let's just keep her in the background for now. And it's now like 4 years later, and we've seen her, like, I don't know, a grand total of like 2 minutes of screen time in that whole period. She has done absolutely nothing. They know that she is a gigantic steaming turd, and they do not want to handle her.
They got like a theatrical stage. They bring her out, and they're like, "Whoa, yeah, look, it's amazing!" The whole crowd turn on her, and they're like, "Yeah, boo! Actually, yes, we don't like her. No."
Didn't Chris Gore say that, like, they had Brie Larson doing a walkabout at a con not that long ago? Like, I think in Captain Marvel, you know, garb, to try and generate like hype, and like nobody was taking notice of her.
Oh.
He was like, it was one of the saddest things I've ever seen.
Didn't she have that quote? I can't remember which show I was reading it out on, but she said like she's walked down the street with many people not recognizing her. And it's just like, okay.
I mean, look, she looks like a Starbucks barista. Like, it's not like she's oozing star power anyways. It's just, and you have to almost feel a bit of sympathy, because I think even if Captain Marvel had been a big film, I think at the end of the day, superhero films have entered their fat Elvis phase. And so this still would have kind of had an underwhelming reception. So now you pile this on top of it.
The fact is, like, nerdy movie lovers, like, how they have trouble naming the movie she's in. Cut out, like, you know, Marvel. It's like, what has Brie Larson been in? It's like, Scott Pilgrim? She was in that.
Actually, I take that back. That's unfair to Elvis. Elvis could still pack a theater at the end.
Yeah. Oh, they'll make sure they buy up the seats. Don't worry, they'll get sold. But yeah, man, it's like, well, I guess, you know, what has she done outside of Marvel in the past 4 years? Like, I can't name any movie that she's been.
Start a YouTube channel in the early days of COVID. I think she did that.
That's the thing of notes for her. It's the YouTube channel. You're like, okay.
It's like, yeah.
Do you remember Vine?
I do.
She started a Vine. No,
didn't she show for like those NFTs for a while?
Of course she did. Loads of celebrities they have no idea what they are. Like, sure.
To be
NFTs,
fair, neither do I.
Yeah, I still don't understand.
Isn't
it,
it, any of you seen that video of Jimmy Fallon and Paris Hilton talking about NFTs? It's like literally two robots, like robot aliens. They neither of them know what it is, but they're both talking to each other as though they both do. And it's so fucking funny and corporate. He's like, I really like my one. It's this. This is my monkey. It's a bored ape or something. Yeah, I love it. It's like, what the fuck is going on?
Crypto and NFTs are that way. Like, you'll never find subjects where people are more passionate about something they vividly have no clue about. All right, I admit my ignorance outright, but people are deeply opinionated about two things that they haven't the first clue what it's even about.
Is it just like a mass delusion? Like everyone's too proud to admit that they don't understand them, and so everyone's just going along with them. It's just like pretending,
right?
But yeah, like with the trailer, when you get, I think Mauler, you mentioned it. Like this movie isn't just a Captain Marvel movie. Now it's predicated on the three of them like supporting it essentially because they kind of know that Captain Marvel's not all that popular.
No.
So, but what you would really need to do then is pack it with like well-known popular characters to help support it. Instead, what you've got is Ms. Marvel, who's only known for a TV show that nobody fucking watched. It might have been great, it might have been amazing, doesn't matter. Nobody cared, like no one saw it. And you've got Monica Rambeau, who's known only from WandaVision. Again, a TV show that not that many mainstream fans of Marvel have watched.
The main thing people remember about that character is that she let a monster go. That's all she did.
And that's if they remember her at all. I keep forgetting that she was in WandaVision. So I saw her in the trailer and thought, where have I seen you before? Oh,
she had the she had the laziest, most bizarre way of getting your powers as well. It's like she just kind of walked through a barrier thing and suddenly she can go flumpy and let bullets pass through her. I don't
I'm very happy to hear you use the word flumpy, by the way. But...
I try to apply that to so many things in life now.
Have you, before we move off of that topic, of Disney Marvel shows, have you been keeping track of this Daredevil Afterbirth that's being worked on here?
I'm trying to not think about it.
It's like every new item of news is like, hey, you know that great thing you watched a few years ago? Yeah, this won't be that. This won't be that. So
Disney's
we're not even
like
bringing back most of the actors.
Disney is like that asshole kid who just wouldn't let you build a sandcastle at the beach, and it's just like he's just going around stomping on everything that you've built. You know, like the nice sandcastle you got there. You know,
and then he picks up all the sand, drops it in front of himself. He's like, "Look at my castle." Yeah,
it's better than yours.
It's because those three women, right? Because you just partially described it. It's like if someone was like, "Oh, what are the origin powers of these girls? Like, what do they do? What's this stuff?" And it's like, well, one of them shot a space engine and got covered in its goo. That's where she got her power from. One of them walked through some wall and it gave her power. The other one got them in the mail.
Yeah,
it's like what the fuck? And you're like, what do they do? And it's like they'll do energy stuff. Energy. It's light energy.
It's not even just the characters though. That trailer is like a greatest hits compilation. If all the greatest hits are really, really terrible for everything that Marvel's doing at the moment. So you've got zany, quirky meta humor, which doesn't land. You've got some pretty dodgy CGI work, which looks very cheap and rushed. You have characters people either don't know or don't like, and you have just sort of this consequence-free little fun jaunt across multi-dimensional space, which no one can understand. So it's all of current Marvel trends sort of just condensed into one 90-second long trailer. It's kind of remarkably efficient, actually.
Mm-hmm. That scene on the moon where Monica Rambeau gets dumped on the ground and a bunch of guys run towards it, like that looks like something out of Doctor Who. It was so
it genuinely
cheap.
Looked like someone's garage was filmed in. Like they were like, gotta get this scene done quick, and they just appear from nowhere in like this vast desert of a moon. Like it's a moonscape. It seems to be anyway. And it's just like, what the fuck is going on?
more of that, dude. You see more of that in Marvel movies. They're starting to look like student films. Like, did you see some of the shots in Black Widow?
Oh yeah,
like you can practically see artifacting from the green screen in some of those shots. Like it was like, what am I even looking at here?
The famous
Would you make
one,
this in
right?
3D Studio Max?
Where she like detonates the ship or whatever, and she flings off. Everyone made fun of that when it happened. Oh, there's always like one big CG fuck up in every one of Marvel's movies. now. There's always one that gets memed to hell and back. I was gonna say one. Ant-Man had like 4 because of MODOK and the animation and stuff, but it's gonna get worse.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of this one is going to be as well, like the reshoots, because there's loads of rumors swirling around that this movie has been a nightmare to get made. Like the script was disastrous, the test screenings were awful, they've had to reshoot it multiple times, there's been all kinds of dramas behind the scenes, and I think that perfectly explains why the CGI looks so shit. Like, it's probably been done over like 5 different times, 5 different ways, and like they're just burned out. They've used up all their budget, they've used up all their resources, and this is the best they've got left. Yeah, I mean,
they've ran out of children's souls sacrificing. They're just gonna get more of that.
I mean, it just like when I think of comedy, it's really tough to pin Brie Larson's name to that and think, yeah, that's going to be a funny movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing I liked it from was Room, which is strictly dramatic. Because people say, why didn't I mention that earlier? Because no one's seen it. I'm like the only person who has, I think. But it's okay.
I mean, in my defense, I've read the book and I really liked it, and I really need to see the adaptation of it. I guess does she do a good job then? I assume.
In my Captain Marvel videos, the one thing I say is she can act. Watch Room. Okay. She can do it. You got to get a director that gives a shit though to push the performance out of it.
That's what we don't have in Marvel at this point. There's not a single director who cares. Well, maybe.
Yeah. Well, because they're hiring directors like they're casting the Planeteers. Like, it's like, oh, we've got to get this person with an aberrant sexual lifestyle, or this. It's got to be a woman. We remember when they were on the big kick of we've got to have a Marvel movie directed by a woman, right? They've got basically a checklist at this point, and if you're not going to have a meritocracy in an extremely specialized discipline like directing a Hollywood film, like where are you going to have a meritocracy? And the end result is going to
well, I mean, ultimately, that's the thing. The audience ultimately decides if what you've produced is good. And well, I mean, like you say, the whole superhero genre is reaching that point now where it's you can't just produce a generic superhero movie and expect it to sell. We are way past that point. It has to be something truly special that's going to get people's interest. And this movie just looks exactly like every other Marvel movie that's been produced over the past couple of years.
It does. I mean,
just
look at all the people not talking about Blue Beetle for an example of what happens when you try and put a generic thing that's coming out. Apparently, I don't even know if it's coming out. I'm
I have no clue.
But like, it's there, and you watch the trailer, and then you think, yeah, well, I've seen all of that 15,000 times already. That's about as generic a superhero as you could possibly put on the screen. And as you say, Drinker, we are past the stage where you can get away with that. But Marvel's problem goes beyond just being generic. Marvel's problem goes now to the point of just being utter dog shit. With no offense to the Critical Doggo, who could probably do shit better.
Well, she does shit like crazy, so yeah, that's.
I was hoping to actually ask Razor while he's here as well. It's what do you think about? Because I'm familiar with what you have to say about the fall of the superhero movie sort of thing. I quite like the comments in relation to like Western genres and stuff. But what do you think about the rise of video game adaptations?
I was worried that I was going to be correct in predicting that. I was years ago. So when I put out my first, I must have put out my first video where I kind of charted the different phases of sort of Hollywood trends and how superhero movies at that point were kind of starting to get into the deconstruction phase where you're sort of getting different like Joker and Logan and different looks at the genre. And I kind of looked at that and just sort of said, okay, we've got to recognize that eventually this, like I said, we're going to hit Fat Elvis phase, which is sort of where we're at right now. But I don't know. At the end of the day, it just sort of, I don't know. And actually, hold on a moment. I'm getting a phone call. I apologize.
Well,
sorry.
On that note, I was just going to say, like, because passing mention for Mario's box office just fucking skyrocketing, as everyone thought it would.
It is. I just think that's slightly concerning, though. Not there's a whole conversation to be about Mario. I mean, this is not me saying that it's an absolutely appalling film. It isn't. It's fun and it's enjoyable. But it seems that the studio was very keenly aware that they didn't have to do anything. Like ambition in many respects was not an advantage to them. And they sort of treated story as their enemy, and they steered as far away from that as they possibly could. And so when you get more video game adaptations coming out with long-established fan bases, the temptation is to play it as safe as you possibly can, which means you'll get a lot of video game films, and you won't remember any of them after about 6 months of having seen them.
Listen, dude, I think like 500 of them, we'll get at least like 1 or 2 good ones, right? Maybe 3. Yeah,
that's been the rationale with superhero movies.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was in the middle of talking about that. I predicted, like, okay, if you were looking at as they were heading down the other side of the slope, you're going to start seeing Hollywood grab for other genres. I think they were trying for some other things too, like, and some have actually panned out. You look at what happened with the last Top Gun movie, right? Oh, we'll go big Hollywood original blockbuster. We'll go the remake route. We'll go that they were for a number of years, right? They were working on an Escape from New York remake. It was going to have Jason Statham in it. Now, apparently, it's going to have a chick in it, right? So I think that was on the table for a while. But now, definitely, with the success of Mario and the success of Sonic, because I think I made that prediction even before Sonic came out and was a big hit. I think definitely, unfortunately, we're going to be... And Last of Us, I guess, plays into that, too, if you watch that, if you have that kind of inoperable brain tumor.
Wow.
Well, to just before you go on there, like, to pick up on the point you made, Platoon, about, you know, is story going to be, like, just taking backseat to just playing it safe and just getting the member berries out there? I think it's very much going to be dependent on the subject matter. Like, if you're dealing with something like Super Mario Brothers... Let's be honest here, the games aren't exactly heavy on complex storytelling right there. It's just get yourself from A to B, defeat the bad guy, save the princess. It's the most basic thing you could ever do.
It is, but conversation about adaptation faithfulness, doesn't it?
Yeah, adaptation of faithfulness, but it's also sort of... I like to think that if you're paying screenwriters a lot of money, one of the things you might ask them to do is write something. Just as a starting basis. So I've heard that argument a lot, which is, well, the game doesn't have any plot, so the film doesn't need it either. Well, okay, we have just had Arcane come out relatively recently. Are you going to say that Arcane didn't need to be as good as it was because the game it was based on didn't have anything like so good a story? I don't really think that argument holds up very well. The absence of plot in your source material, if it's a video game, isn't an excuse to put out a film with no plot. If anything, it gives you unlimited potential to actually turn that source material to a brand new use and purpose. But, you know, there's a reason we still talk about animations like The Incredibles or like Toy Story or like Up or Monsters, Inc. These are films which are family-oriented films, but we still talk about them years, even decades after they came out, because we didn't say, it's just a kid's movie and it's only meant to be fun. It doesn't need to have a very good story. The reason they're memorable is that they are good fun, they do a load of good reference stuff, but they also tell brilliant, timely stories, and timeless stories even, which makes them actually distinctive and memorable. Mario is good fun when you're sitting there watching it, but I just don't imagine anyone who saw it last week will be still thinking about it come Christmas.
Yeah, I think I assume Drinker's comment is only to explain why it's doing probably really well, right? Because people don't even... Most people who are familiar with Mario aren't... Like, take Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers. He was just like, I was just happy to see all the references I'm familiar with. Mario beating Bowser with Luigi and saving Peach. Like, normal stuff. But I'm with you completely. It would be way better if we got fucking great writing in there. That'd be cool.
I would love a Mario movie done in the style of Arcane, like super intense, like serious character development and shit. That'd be great.
Yeah. Well, were you guys alive when most of us were, us aging freaking millennials, when the original movie came out? I mean, a lot of people went and saw that. I don't remember how successful it was, but I remember it was successful. It was all over the place. People were just excited to see a Mario movie then. I'm pretty sure it's kind of just the same thing now, to be honest.
I was super confused when that movie finished. I was like, what the fuck did I watch?
So were the people in it.
Yeah. It was just, well, it was a take, I'll say that. It was a different take on Mario. But yeah, it's not something it's not a road I would have gone down. That's for sure.
So just because I was curious, it had a 50 million budget and it grossed to 21 million worldwide. So not fantastic, but hey, you know, it would have been talked about quite a bit probably. That'd have been a big event.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, this was I guess this was back in the days when doing a video game adaptation was still way out there. You know, it was still a totally unproven market, but the demand was there. They just didn't know how to do it. And that was probably around the era that you had the Mortal Kombat movie, well, the first one at least, You had Street Fighter, you had Super Mario Brothers, so they were trying to do it. It's just they kept fucking failing.
Yeah, which to be fair, you can track superhero adaptations and stuff that way too. There's just these little
But-
times where they tried and failed.
But yeah, and it's like they've had a long road and they've had a lot of failures along the way. But I think they're now at the point where they've found a way to do it and they found a way to make it work. And if they can tap into that market, which fucking dwarfs Hollywood, it will crush superhero movies.
Oh, the video game market,
Once,
dude, it's been on the table for years. It's waiting. It's just waiting for them.
Yep. And yeah, I think we were talked about this on the last open bar. They have bought up so many properties and they've got so many things quietly in development that almost we weren't even aware of. You were like reeling them off. I was like, holy shit, I didn't even know they were working on that. But it's like, yeah, they know where this is heading and they've got all this stuff in the works. And yeah, like I think this is what we're going to see the shift over the next couple of years.
Yeah,
It's funny
Nintendo-
too because you can see Disney are still and Warner are still kind of in denial about moving on from superheroes, and it's going to be kind of hilarious to watch them slowly pushed out over the next few years as you move on to other properties. Of course, Disney can diversify and do other things, so can Warner, but DC and Marvel, you wonder what's going to happen. They're already kind of, if you're paying attention to these stories, you're already hearing noise about maybe the print business of all the DC comics will go away in the next 2 years. Maybe Marvel will be kind of rolled in with some other department and not really be its own thing anymore. And you're starting to see these kind of stories backstage at Disney and Marvel, and you kind of get the feeling they're priming the pump for this trend is going down the other side of the mountain. Maybe we'll move on.
I mean, I can see why Disney's so desperate to cling on to it, because when you think about the amount of money that they have made from Marvel, they are going to want to keep that. They're going to ride that all the way into the ground, because why wouldn't they? It's a moneymaker.
It's investment as well. So like Disney's major financial troubles come from its theme parks first and its movies second, and its theme parks bank on the success of the franchises that it's bought up. Universal is making huge investments in its own theme park. It has the Super Mario World one, it has Harry Potter, and of course HBO is now rebooting Harry Potter. So you have Universal making significant moves to try and take advantage of Disney's now weakened position. Disney's weakened position is largely due to the fact that it can't produce good movies anymore, but those have knock-on consequences for its investments in its big money spinners like its theme parks, which just have not recovered from coronavirus. So like the company as a whole is in a huge amount of trouble, and Universal is, well, that's another reason for them to play it extra safe with Mario. Nintendo has set up Nintendo Pictures, I think, as a division relatively recently, so we know we're going to get a load more of these. I don't know if they're going to be connecting in an overarching NCU.
They'll do it.
But the problem with that is that, in the ideal world, that would be lovely, but an entire NCU of films as basically content-free as Mario is just saying, look, member berries, come pay for them.
Yeah, it's going to be the same life cycle probably, because it wasn't just superhero movies falling apart that needed to happen to kill it. It needed something else to take its place, people to get distracted by some other thing. And it's like, look at, Maverick, Avatar, even Puss in Boots: The Last Wish manages to like humiliate superhero movies.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's interesting too because Universal has the rights to a number of heroes that are associated with comic books, but they're sort of pulp era, and they've been trying to get them off the ground for the last several years. They've had that Doc Savage thing in the works for forever and haven't done anything. They had The Rock signed onto it for a while. There's been a Shadow movie in development hell for years that had Sam Raimi attached for a while. They completely missed the boat on that. It looks like they're jumping on video games instead, because it's like, okay, this superhero thing is not working out for us. So
I think from a purely financial point of view as well, like look at how much it costs to produce a superhero movie now. Like the sheer amount of CGI, the special effects, the action sequences. The average superhero movie is like $250 million plus advertising. And when it gets to the point now where, as we said, you can't just release any old superhero flick with unproven characters and expect people to buy into it. We're way past that point. Yeah. It's no longer financially viable.
I think Shazam really illustrated that. It was like, just fucking died.
Well, there was Shazam, there's been Ant-Man 3, Black Adam was a big flop as well. That had The Rock in it. That should have been, like, everyone expected that to do well, or at least The Rock did. And, they all flopped. And
Well, the
this
heat's
is
on now because people have started worrying about like I I think I was asked what do I expect the box office for Guardians 3 to be, and I was almost going to rattle off like 800 mil, and then I was like, wait, it could what if it's like what if it doesn't do well? Like what if
I think it will be good enough that it will do reasonably well. It'll turn a profit, but not a huge amount. I don't think because the fatigue is set in.
It'll
I think
pull a Shang-Chi.
if yeah, it'll be a triumph. If the Marvels reaches 500 million, I will be surprised.
I mean,
Put
there's
it that
still
way.
interest in it. I mean, the trailer scene, when I checked, had quite a lot of views and engagement. It's just that the engagement isn't very good, isn't it? One of the most disliked videos or something in recent memory. And it
There's
shows
so much antipathy towards that character, though.
There is, but I think the antipathy is spreading now. It's not just antipathy toward her, although she's very much a touchstone for that kind of thing. But it's much more generalized now. So you are still getting a lot of interest in films like Ant-Man, but the interest is largely people saying, "Oh my god, this is terrible," or "I hate this, I'm not going to watch it anymore," or "I'm never going to watch it to begin with because I hate what Marvel's doing." And its aura has now just become quite sort of corrupted. Not to sound too weirdly spiritualist about it. It's a generalized thing now. I don't think it's specific to unpopular characters. They're becoming a very unpopular franchise, or at least a very divided one in terms of fan base. And so you'll keep getting clicks on those trailers and you'll keep getting views on YouTube videos about it, but the actual movie performance probably won't track the interest that's being displayed about it on YouTube.
I'm waiting to see what the critical dog was going to do. She's it. Yes.
Well, 3 more weeks
She's
of
done.
winter.
Yeah, she's down. But yeah, I mean that's talking about the Marvels and its prospects financially. Yeah, it's.
I think you're bang on. I think it's gonna, if it's not a big tentpole thing, like gosh, you saw the reaction to seeing Harley Quinn as in Joker 2 or whatever that, right? If it's a big thing that was really successful and a big brand, I think it'll do well. But that's been true of any genre that's gone away, right? Like Westerns went away at the end of the 60s. You still got Clint Eastwood Westerns, and they still did well. You still got John Wayne Westerns all throughout the 70s and 80s and into the 90s even, and they all did well. It's just, unless it's a big name and unless it's a big actor, I don't think you're guaranteed to be successful. The days of something called Ant-Man being successful just because it has a Marvel logo on it, those are well past.
Well, I think
right?
look at what we've got now, right? Probably Guardians 3 will be the only decent movie in Phase 5. So Phase 5 could be like the era of decline for Marvel. Phase 4 was already a bit of a disaster, but you can pin some of that on COVID. But like this is really going to be the point where like you're going to get like $500 million movies is going to be the norm. That's the best they're going to hope for, I think. And I think about DC, where it's like they're trying to go through this renaissance under James Gunn, and it's come along at the worst possible time. Like, it almost doesn't matter if you produce good movies at this point, James, because nobody cares anymore. Like, we're kind of moving past superhero movies, and you've still got a bit of pull with characters like Superman. Obviously, there's a universal appeal to that, but it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough to create your own Marvel MCU rival.
That's the requirement. It has to be good and recognizable, like sort of thing. Because who even of all the people who will see Marvels, what percentage do you think know it's a sequel to Captain Marvel? I don't even like. I'm not even sure if 10% is too much. Like, I don't know how many people actually know.
I mean, when I think about the people that are going to get excited for this movie, I don't know how many of them are even going to know what a superhero is. Like, they're just going to, like, that's the kind of market where you're just appealing to people who like bright colors on screen.
Yeah, I mean, I'll own up to it personally. I worked in a comic store. When I heard there's a Marvels movie, I was like, wait, that there's gonna make a film adaptation of the Alex Ross comic that was all painted, and you remember that back in like the 90s? They did this Marvels thing where it was like a ground level, like the view from the street from the civilians as the Marvels were doing their thing. That was the whole concept. I thought that's what the movie was going to be, and then I was like, oh, wait a minute, no, it's not. It's not that at all.
That's why I don't even know if it was a good idea for them to call it that versus Captain Marvel 2. I don't know. I'm not. like one of the bean count people. But it's funny you were mentioning as well, Drinker. It's like the best of Phase 5 will likely be Guardians 3. It's like, well, what about the Avengers movies? It's like they're being written by Loveness and fucking Waldron, the people responsible for Ant-Man 3 and MOM. It's like literally possibly the two worst writers in the MCU are behind the new Avengers movies.
And
Amazing.
what is the new Avengers movie going to consist of? Is it like an A-Force movie?
Kang.
Well, yeah, but is Jonathan Majors even going to be working for Marvel at that point? Because, like, yeah, he's in trouble, you know. And like, I don't want to make assumptions or anything, but that kind of thing, it sticks, and they don't like the negative PR. But then, what can you do with the guy? Because it's like he's supposed to be the centerpiece of everything.
I think they can
forward.
ignore Ant-Man not making as much as they wanna, or even like the Marvels failing and flopping. I think that as soon as an Avengers movie doesn't go over $1 billion, that's when they're gonna be like, wait a minute, are we dead? Like, oh fuck.
I mean, you don't have Tony Stark anymore. You don't have Captain America. You don't have Black Widow.
You don't have Thor.
Well, you might have Thor, but like probably not. I
Not
don't
really.
think Chris Hemsworth's not going to want to do
Why
it.
would you want him after the last one?
That's kind of what I'm saying. Is he's not even Thor anymore. He's some weird like jokester person who's
Yeah, and like
What can you
whoever
say?
you can potentially replace him with, like nobody's going to give a shit about that. And so, yeah, I just don't know what the selling point's meant to be. They never managed to do the transition. That's their problem. They never managed to transition from the first generation of Avengers to the next generation. They didn't manage to set up any new characters that people liked. The only one I can think of is Falcon. And again, he was a cool character on his own, but then you tried to make him Captain America, and he's not Captain America. And like people are just pissed off about that. And so you've just given him sloppy seconds and made him this cheap carbon copy of someone that came before him.
Yep.
It's not the same thing.
God, that show was
it-
awful.
We've got Kate
It's a classic
Bishop.
example. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying we've got Kate Bishop and we have
Girl
Riri
Hawkeye.
Williams and we
Girl Iron Man.
have
Girl
who else
Loki.
have they introduced?
We got
Girl Loki,
we got She-Hulk.
She-Hulk,
Girl Hulk.
What else we
and-
got? Oh, we got Girl Black Widow, or more girl, other girl Black Widow.
This is it's
Squirrel
all
Girl.
girl, and this is you we joke about it, but it's like you've literally become the meme, Marvel. You've just your only solution is just to take every character that was popular and make them female, and then try and port that popularity over to the new ones, but not have them have any personality or struggle or anything remotely interesting. What did you think was going to happen?
And they've had 2 phases. By the time that this next Avengers film comes out, or whenever that comes out, that's 2 phases worth of films, and Phase 4 has more films in it than any of the preceding phases do. You've not had a scarcity of time in which to establish these new characters. You've not had an absence of premise by which to establish and introduce new characters. I mean, sure, if you're going to use a multiverse for anything, and I don't think you should, but if you are going to, that is your opportunity to actually start restocking your major cast of characters. It's a really cheap, quick, and convenient way of introducing new people, rather than introducing new people and having Wanda kill them all, which is kind of a waste, I think. So they've not been wanting for time or for resource or for opportunity, but they haven't taken any of it. And yeah, we're going to get to this point of the next Avengers film, and who is left that anyone really gives a damn about? Probably no one by that point.
That's the I don't think they even considered that approach, because they didn't do this organically. I think the fundamental problem really is they planned ahead of time. We'll have this phase and this phase and this phase. We will transition to a new Avengers and blah, blah, blah. They didn't let that be a natural outgrowth of the story, right? Like you have to actually, the classic example I always use, and this is a comic book example, is back in 2006, there were 2 big events that popped off at DC and Marvel, rival events. One was Infinite Crisis over at DC, and the other was Civil War. And Civil War, huge hit. Infinite Crisis, also a hit, not quite the hit that Civil War is. Let's put it this way. They're not making an Infinite Crisis movie over at Warner, right? Civil War was a movie and a very successful one. Civil War was an outgrowth of a previous story, House of M, that the writers just kind of brainstormed. Oh, that'd be a natural thing to have happen next, right? Because this crazy thing happened with this rogue mutant. Therefore, we need to regulate these guys. Infinite Crisis, they literally sat in a room and Dan DiDio was like, we've got editorial problems. we've got to change things editorially. So we're going to make an event where we fix all those problems. They weren't inspired to write it, right? They wanted to fix their editorial issues that had happened ever since Crisis on Infinite Earths back in the day. That's essentially what's going on here. That's basically what's happening on the movie front is we're going to have a new phase of Marvels, but we're not naturally going to allow that to evolve. You have to write like nobody is reading, right? This will be easier to imagine if you're Marvel or DC, by the way. But you have to you have to let that be a natural growth.
No, that makes complete sense. Yeah, the greatest story is going to erupt from like everything following on from where it started and where it was developing, instead of just we need a big event, go. I don't know, Godzilla.
What do you think their entire like creative impetus was just geared towards getting it wrapped up with Endgame? And beyond that, like beyond the Infinity Saga, they were just like, we'll figure it out later. And like suddenly later became now, and they didn't really have a plan for it. And that's why you just got Phase 4, which was just this weird mishmash of like unrelated shit that didn't make any sense.
Well, don't forget, MOM was a direct consequence of No Way Home, I think. They were like, oh, you guys like it when there's more cameos of people you've liked from the call up Patrick Stewart, call up fucking who do they want for Reed Richards? Oh, John Krasinski. Sure, we'll call him, see if he's interested, and then we'll just kill them both. That's what you guys want to see, right? It's like, okay, how did you learn all of the wrong lessons from No Way Home? How is that possible? Like,
yeah. But hey, speaking of total lack of creativity and imagination, we got a bunch of new Star Wars movies announced at Star Wars Commiseration 2023. I don't know about you guys. I'm really excited to see another Rey Skywalker movie. I can't wait.
The day before the announcement was open bar, and I was just like,
yes,
about how much the worst possible idea would be to start up a new trilogy with Rey at the head. Like that would just be the worst idea. And then they're like, hey, we have an idea. Like, oh, no. Why would you do that?
I'm not even sure that this idea isn't even worse than that, though. Because, all the people talking about what Star Wars needs to do to recover, it needs to go very far back or very far forward. You need to really separate it. To which Disney say, okay, how about all of the above? So we can have one film with Rey. We can have one film directed by Dave Filoni which wraps up whatever remains of The Mandalorian. And we've got another film which goes 25,000 years back in time to establish the origin of the Jedi. The Rey film will piss people off because A, it's Rey, B, it's the story that Luke probably should have got in terms of rebuilding the Jedi Order, and C, it's being helmed by someone whose sole qualifications appear to be that she's directed 3 episodes of Ms. Marvel, and she's a feminist activist, and she once co-chaired the World Economic Foundation Forum, whatever they call it. And that's like, those seem to be the major qualifications, which is just everything that Disney has already done wrong with Star Wars, all condensed into one film.
Yep.
Guys, I think you're missing the forest for the trees here. We've added Lizzo to Star Wars. What are you talking about?
Thank God.
We've race-swapped the Death Star.
But, no. I mean, if you wanted to split Star Wars into phases almost, then this phase is just the equivalent of throwing a bunch of shit against a wall and just hoping that something sticks. Like you say, you've got something that's set way in the past, something that's moving forward into the future, and something that wraps up the Mandalorian timeline, which is prior to the sequel trilogy. And so you're trying a little bit of everything, and you just know, like, if one of them succeeds, they've got a bunch of, like, follow-ups just waiting to go.
6 movies on top of that. Here you go. 10 TV shows.
Kathleen Kennedy confirmed in an interview that Taika Waititi is still working on the script for his film, and moreover, she confirmed that he's not letting anyone else have any say or input because he wants to write all of it himself, and we've seen how well that's worked in the past.
I was about to say,
good luck to you, Taika.
For anyone who thinks that that's a potentially good plan, like Taika with Star Wars, just like he's done it already. He did it in Mandalorian, and he made stormtroopers canonically retarded. That was his contribution to Star Wars. So let's not.
I mean,
so it sounds like he's literally going to do the thing that people falsely accuse George Lucas of doing, like having no outside input at all, right? Like shutting people up. George Lucas was amenable to collaborators, just nobody wanted to collaborate with him.
It's also what he did with Thor Love and Thunder. That's what he did in that approach as well. The reason that film is markedly different in quality to Thor Ragnarok is that Thor Ragnarok was written by somebody else and directed by Taika Waititi. Yeah. Then they gave him the keys to the entire castle, all of Asgard for Thor Love and Thunder, or what remains of it, and then we got Love and Thunder because Waititi's kind of a quirky guy. He's kind of funny. He can direct with an interesting spin things that other people have written as long as the script is good, but he can't, it seems, write and direct all on his own. So if you want Thor Love and Thunder, the Star Wars film, that's what we're going to get.
Taika can't rein in his idea of what funny is, and so when it comes to like trying to weave dramatic moments in with little moments of humor to bring it a bit of levity and stuff, like another writer can do that quite effectively. If you're skilled, you can balance those two elements. Taika just goes 100% in favor of the humor aspect of it. And like you say, that's why you ended up with Love and Thunder, where you've essentially got a woman dying of cancer trying to make amends with the man of the love of her life before she passes away, and you've got stupid cutaway scenes to like Korg and his head just sitting on a bar, and like Valkyrie getting drunk with him and stuff. It's so tonally mismatched. It's like, yeah, it's like shoving a fucking wrench into the gearbox of an F1 car at 200 miles an hour. Like that's how stupid and ineffective it is. But like in Taika's mind, that's totally fine because you can just laugh at anything as far as he's concerned. It doesn't work like that.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, when you check out any of the behind-the-scenes stuff, he just didn't give a fuck about that movie whatsoever. He didn't give a shit.
Well, didn't he just say like he was coming up with ideas on the fly, and they would shoot entire scenes that probably cost like hundreds of thousands of dollars to stage and shoot, and never got seen, never got used. It was just like whatever popped into Taika's head, we'll do it.
It's like, man, you have hundreds of millions, but okay, fine. You just don't care. Fine, I guess.
But I suppose at least he's trying to be funny, whereas for unintended comedy, which is much funnier than anything Taika Waititi can do, we do, of course, have the Dave Filoni film to look forward to. And so that's all wrapping up the entire timeline for The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and whatever else they'll be releasing sort of in the lead up to that. So the positive side of that is that we theoretically have an end date for all of this, so The Mandalorian will go away eventually. That's something to look forward to. But
you say that like they didn't say 7 fucking years. Like, it'll eventually go away.
It's just like people saying this last season of Picard is the last. It's like, are you sure? If it's actually successful because people are actually excited about it, are you sure they won't after Picard? Right, like you know what I mean? Slap together a 4th season. I could see it happening.
I mean, I think you'd have to like string Patrick Stewart up on a fucking rope or something, like
right.
Have him weekend at Barney's job because he's pretty fucking old now.
To prop him up with deep sea fishing twine.
Well, I mean that show is frustrating in its own way because it's like they finally hit their stride. It's like fucking Logan with the X-Men. It's like they finally produced a good Wolverine movie right at the end, like 20 years down the line when everything's just finishing. It's like, well, yeah, okay, if you'd done that 10 years ago, we would have had a whole different history to this. But yeah, as far as like the Star Wars movies goes, yeah, the Dave Filoni one. Nobody cares about these characters when they can watch them more or less for free on Disney Plus. So who the hell's going to go to the cinema to watch a resolution to all this stuff? Like, yeah, Grogu, you can only milk him for so long before people sour on that as well.
I don't know. We've got Mecha Grogu now. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen the most recent episode.
I mean, The Mandalorian is now the Bo-Katan show. Anyway, as far as I understand it, so like, yeah, she would be
with the finale. It's all set up.
She would be leading the charge, obviously, because we need another female character in Star Wars, clearly, because we haven't had enough of them. So that's all you've got there.
With the focus becoming way more on her, and this last episode setting up that she's going to be rescuing Mando from Gideon, I saw like a discussion on Twitter where they were like, "Yeah, well, it's not that bad that she's the main character. She's got so much character, like that's great." And I was like, "Way more than Mando." I was like, "That's not fair. He doesn't have any." Like everyone has more character than him. He can't.
Who in this show has got character really? They're just a bunch of people who say the lines that are needed to progress the story to the next like fetch quest. That's all they are. None of them have real personalities or drives or anything. And it's the same with Bo-Katan. But,
I was actually partially driven mad in the last episode because I've been waiting extensively for them to give him a thrust, to give him a goal. He doesn't have one at all. Remember, season 1, it's give the baby back to his homeworld. Season 2, give the baby back to his homeworld. Luke Skywalker turns up, sure, have the baby. There we go, back to bounty hunting. That's what he did for an episode. He went back to bounty. I was like, finally. And then, the thing with Luke happens, and he goes, I'm back to babysitting again. It's like, and then he's like, actually, I need to recapture my honor by going into a bath. He did that. We back to bounty hunting now? And he was like, no, he's now pledged himself to Bo-Katan. He is her personal guard. He's going to be doing everything she wants to do.
This is insulting. It's
I was
genuinely.
like,
It gets to the point.
me. Just bounty hunt for fuck's sake.
It gets to the
Imagine-
point. Like,
imagine if you
give
built a
Bo-Katan. Like, if you've got such a fucking hard on for Bo-Katan, right? Give her own show. Just give her own show, and you can wax lyrical about how amazing she is as much as you want. Let Mando do his own thing. Don't make him a fucking backseat passenger in his own TV show. That's just insulting, man.
And
You have
it's
to
like-
understand, Drinker. Mandalorian refers to more than just him, you see. It's all the Mandalorian.
Yeah, they didn't tell us which Mandalorian they were talking about when they called it the
Maybe
Mandalorian.
maybe
so-
the real Mandalorian was the friends we made along the way.
Quite literally, yeah. That's what they're doing.
The Mandalorian lives within all of us right here.
But the
It's
Filoni
so-
one is supposed to be. I say it's supposed to be. The reason for having Filoni and Favreau in is that obviously Filoni's done a load of the animated stuff. He worked with George Lucas. He's supposed to be really familiar with the lore. He's supposed to know what he's doing. So you would think whatever he's working on would be the most coherent of all of them. But that's not what we've got from the shows, the live-action shows on Disney+. I'd be very surprised if that's what we would get from his film either. In which case, what's the point of having a not very talented writer around who can't even remember the lore that was the only reason for hiring him to begin with?
Yeah.
The co-creator, the wonderful Filoni god to all these Star Wars fans, it's like he gave you Lizzo chastising Christopher Lloyd in a scene that looked like bad for Scooby-Doo standards. Like, I don't even... That's what you got. Enjoy.
And then knighting Baby Yoda for services to... I don't even know.
I don't know what
for
that
the sake
was.
of it.
I don't know what any of it is.
Like, I stopped watching this show several episodes ago now, and like just hearing everything you're describing, it just makes me really glad that I did.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It is
that
one
brings
of the
us.
funniest things on TV, though. As I will say, there's a lot of
It's fun.
terrible actual comedy out there. There is not very much good comedy. If you want something just to laugh at, The Mandalorian is a good place to go.
Funnier than Book of Boba Fett. I mean,
Ooh.
that's going to take some doing.
That's a tough one.
It is. I think in its moments, Mando has kind of exceeded
there.
it slightly. Yeah.
Like Lizzo versus the colorful scooters. You know, it's like, ooh, I don't know. I
Like in
don't
a
know.
Canon Films kind of a way.
Yeah.
It's like, what is more insulting to my intelligence? Well, it's a real tough one at this point. But yeah, like the final idea that they had then was to give Rey another movie, and this has got to be like the perfect example of just petty recriminations on the part of like the writers at Lucasfilm. It's like, well, you didn't like this character, well, tough shit, you're getting another movie with her, and we're gonna keep making movies with Rey until you like her. That's kind of what it feels like. It's like so petty.
Yeah.
It's like
It's like how WWE books Roman Reigns. It's like the same idea. It's like,
Well, yeah,
you
it's
don't like
like-
him, you'll get 50 flavors of him.
yeah. It's like we're just gonna keep pushing her until eventually you accept that she's all you're gonna get Star Wars wise. But yeah,
There's the other aspect of it, which is that I mean, it's everything it's announced. All the directors, all the actors who are being attached to it. It gives the impression of Disney as being this incredibly cliquey place. So all three of the directors have previously helmed Disney stuff, which you'd think would have disqualified them. So you've got the Indiana Jones and the dialysis machine of decrepitude, or whatever you want to call that film.
oh, don't worry, we'll get to that in a minute.
So there's that. The director of that is helming one of them. You've got someone who did, again, 3 episodes of Ms. Marvel, and you've got Dave Filoni. So all of these people are already in the company. What are you doing with them? Well, you're bringing back Rey, because Daisy Ridley's already worked with the company. That's part of Disney's own canon, so we have to keep working on that. Everything about it just suggests that like outside ideas are anathema to these people. They will only do the tried and proven to have failed, but nevertheless reliably failed thing in the hiring decisions, the stories they tell, everything.
Well, I don't know if it's just because they've got a lot invested in Rey in terms of the parks, like the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, the Galaxy Star Cruiser Hotel and stuff. It's all centered around that era of Star Wars, the sequel trilogy, Rey in particular. And it's like, well, you know, they know that the sequel trilogy was on a downward spiral in terms of like box office revenue. Like Force Awakens, like 2.2 billion. Then you get to Rise of Skywalker that barely makes 1 billion. And they know how disastrously unpopular that character is. It's like either they move beyond that altogether, they have to retool everything, or they try somehow to resurrect that character in terms of like cultural relevancy and like fan acceptance. Like, they're gonna try and make us like her basically on a fourth attempt.
It's
I don't
their
know.
only live action alternative. It's the only thing they can do, except for literally just make video game cutscenes in CGI starring Han Solo and Leia and whatever, and just use AI voices for them. Like, that's the alternative. That's literally where we're at, because Mark Hamill's like 90,000 years old, and it's just not going to be a viable alternative to constantly go back to the Luke Skywalker, Han Solo well, and so forth. So what else are they going to do, right?
They never went to that well. They just fucking pissed in it.
Right. No shit. They poisoned it.
Yeah.
Is it possible, do we think, to salvage Rey's character in any way?
I mean,
I'm just trying to-
like
Well,
any writer working their ass off could make something of it, but I just don't expect them to do that.
I mean, yeah. Well, imagine if she goes on an arc like Luke Skywalker and like
We'll never
fails.
do
which-
it.
Yeah, I know.
We'll
That's
never
exactly
fucking
what I was
do it.
about to say. It's like they could have her suffer a fall. You know, she gets overconfident. She tries to resurrect the Jedi, and it all goes horribly wrong. And she has to like pick herself up from that disastrous failure, learn from it, grow as a character, become a stronger person. They won't do it because it would mean admitting that a woman can make a mistake about something. That'll never fucking happen with Disney.
They don't have
Hey,
the
as long as she ends the same way, vanishing into a force fart, I am okay with it. Let's go. Let's do it.
I would be fine with that. I just think it'd be so fucking funny if she ended up back on that island drinking the green alien titty milk like Luke did.
Book it. Fund it.
That's how you win the fans over, Disney. You can have that one for free. But yeah, I don't know. Like, again, much like the Marvels, I don't know who this is meant to appeal to. I don't know who's going to go along and watch this, because clearly that character is not popular, that people aren't invested in her and her journey because she hasn't had one. And so, like, no one's going to care about picking up with her 15 years later. I can see why Daisy Ridley came back, because fucking hell, I can count on one finger the number of films that she's been in since Rise of Skywalker, so I don't blame her for getting a quick paycheck, but man, there's got
After
to be...
Star Wars, you get typecast, but imagine getting typecast. Well, look at Hayden Christensen, look at Ahmed Best, right? When you're typecast in relation to a film that people perceive as being terrible, right? You're basically constantly at the lowest ebb of your career.
I never remember Hayden Christensen Jumper. Remember that?
Yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
That movie didn't go anywhere. It just sort of...
I think Adam Driver is doing his level best to get the fuck away from Star Wars and just like be in a bunch of other stuff, and I think he's probably going to succeed. You know, what was the other one? Poe.
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac, yeah.
I think he's acted well before he went to Star Wars.
So he's probably going to be okay. So he's got plenty of stuff going on. But yeah, Daisy
Dude,
Ridley,
like Moon Knight. I thought that might have had a chance of being good, but oh well.
It was made by Marvel Mauler.
I'm sorry.
What did you expect?
Well, if I remember correctly, the first episode came out and everyone was like, that wasn't horrible. So that's nice.
Moon Knight could have been cool as fuck. Like, he seems like a cool character if they just let him be a total badass. But it's like, again, he has to play second fiddle to another character.
Fucking Gale Moon Knight. But before his first season's out, we got Gale Moon Knight. It's like,
if they wanted to make a movie like Moon Knight as good and actually have it be good, they wouldn't have canceled Daredevil. That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
You knew they weren't going to, because they didn't keep Daredevil going. They had no intention of making that show. That's really, I think, the problem functionally.
Yeah. And what we're going to get Daredevil wise is going to be a horrible, neutered, watered down version of what that character was.
No Foggy, no Karen. Apparently they recast Vanessa Fisk's actress. I guess she was too hot. I don't know what the fuck. But they're recasting her for whatever reason. Pretty much the only two people who are returning are Vincent D'Onofrio. I mean, fair enough. You can't leave the Kingpin out of it. And Charlie Cox, who at this point I physically ache for. It's so hard to watch him have to go through the motions with fucking She-Hulk and whatever the fuck is going on now.
That was the idea. He looked at the scripts, he saw all the situation, he's like, but I get my own show after this, right? And they're like,
please.
It's really sad too, because I don't know how many people know this. It's a family business for him, the Daredevil thing, right? It was not just him being cast as Daredevil. His wife was like the seamstress or something like that. So when the show got shit canned, they both lost their jobs, right? So it's a really bad situation. Now he gets a chance at another show. I hope he's not stupid enough to have his wife work on it, because I could get her another gig, so something much more stable.
Yeah.
But now he's got a chance at another thing, and it's virtually guaranteed to fail, given how bad it looks so far.
Yeah. The thing is, when it's a streaming show on Disney Plus, like, there is no failure or success. It's just another piece of content. We never know how well it does, because they'll never say. Well, I mean, the fact that they don't say probably speaks volumes in itself. You know?
Right.
I don't think that any of them were trumpeting She-Hulk from the rooftops, like, "Hey, 10 million people."
The only way you
tuned
know
in
if
to
it's
watch
a
this.
success, the only way you know if it's a success is if you look at the subscriber numbers. And of late, the subscriber numbers on Disney Plus have looked like World War II fatality figures, right? Like it's terrible.
I mean, they lost a lot because of cricket in India, so like, yeah, fair enough. But like, it could have been compensated for by like a massive surge in subscribers in America, and it hasn't. Like, it's flatlined everywhere, like it's plateaued. And so yeah, that kind of tells you all you need to know. Like, people are not tuning into this anymore. Like, you're probably going to see a wastage of subscribers as well, because you're not producing anything that that they really want to see, you know.
And you're censoring much of what they actually want to see, right?
Yeah.
You're actually removing things.
Well, I mean,
Without Mickey Mouse in blackface, I am not into this streaming service, sir.
Yeah. But yeah, well, I mean, who's excited for the endless fucking live-action remakes of their classic animated movies? Like, because they've got everything lined up now. Like, it's open to floodgates, and there is nothing that they won't ass rape to try and make a quick buck.
But
Everything
how
is getting
awkward
remade.
just outright cost them shit tons just to not make money. Like, stop.
There's got to be
Capitalism,
some
where are
kind
you?
of there's got to be some kind of like copyright reason or something, because they did this like a little over 20 years ago. Remember, in the 90s there was a wave of these. Then they were terrible. They were just as terrible as these ones. They had a live action Jungle Book.
Yeah.
They had a live action Pinocchio with Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Right? They had a bunch of them, and they were terrible. They were terrible. So they decided to go back to the well again, only now it's just going to be a glorified video game cutscene. Everything's going to be CGI. I don't know why they
You're even getting a live-action remake of Moana with The Rock coming back again. Like, I've got stuff in my fucking fridge that's older than that movie. And like, they're doing a remake of that. Like, at what point are they just going to get to you're going to get, like, year one, it'll be, like, the animated movie, and then the following year, you're going to get a live-action remake of it. Like, they might even do them side by side. Who fucking knows? But it's just, like, is there no limitation on this anymore? Is there no shame to anything that you'll recycle to get a quick buck out of it?
Oh. When the alternative is generating an original thought, you'd be surprised at how Disney will find a way to cut that circuitous route around it, right?
I mean, I can understand it, because like, when they've tried to do original things, even those have failed. Like Strange Worlds, like, that was an enormous flop. Turning Red, that was an enormous flop as well. Like,
or even adaptations. Look at what happened with John Carter, which is not actually that bad of a film, right? But a giant biblical bomb, right? Huge bomb.
Yeah. My opinion of that movie has improved year on year when I see what they produce now. It's funny, because that was really their motivation for buying Star Wars, wasn't it? Because that was supposed to be their gateway to doing sci-fi. They were going to have a giant sci-fi franchise from John Carter.
Womp, womp.
Yeah.
Well,
Look how that worked out.
yeah.
Well, there's hope on the horizon, though, and that hope comes in the form of Indiana Jones. Because I know you guys are excited to see an Indiana Jones movie after like 15 years. We clearly need another one. But hey, they've produced another trailer. Like, we got a teaser for it a couple of weeks back, and now they produced the first official trailer for it. And I've only seen it once, so I'm kind of interested to hear your guys' reactions, if I can just play it here and see what you think. So I'll have to.
This is one of those "here we go again" moments. Like, didn't we do all this last time with fucking Temple of Aliens or whatever the hell it was called? Why are we doing this again? It's like, well, because that's how it works.
I may have to pause it like fairly regularly just so I don't get the stream demonetized. But well, I'll do what I can anyway. Just in case you were wondering, Indy is really old now.
And he's like a fish out of
Really
the
old.
the eras.
Let's shine a light on it. Let's turn this into a remake of Grumpy Old Men. Okay, gotcha.
It's so funny, like when your previous movie from like a decade and a half ago featured Indy getting old, and then you're doing another one.
God, and this is God. We're now like what 5-6 years removed from Blade Runner 2049, where he was shambling around in like Walmart clothes and whatever, like in his condo, right? As if the point of that wasn't to make him seem old. Now we're gonna do it again, right? Jesus.
He is 80. So Harrison Ford is 80 years old, and well,
There's a couple songs I think that I would pick for this, but "Sympathy for the Devil" might be the most overused fucking song in like media ever. I feel like I've heard this covered with it.
I think Nirvana, "Come as You Are." I think that may have it.
Well, I was gonna say there's a couple of examples. I think what was crazy is "I Need a Hero." That was in Shazam, Tetris, and Mario.
Yeah,
Shazam, Tetris, and Mario. They all came out within a month. It's like fucking hell.
Yeah. Remember the 80s, Mauler?
Yep.
Remember when there
James
was a
Gunn.
music industry?
Yeah.
I'm retiring.
Well, in that case, what are we drinking?
Same for the goddaughter.
Oh God.
Why would you say that to a bartender? As if the bartender's going to give a shit that she's your goddaughter.
The bartender's like, "Thank you. I actually didn't know the connection." That's a very,
thanks
very simple way of putting it. Yeah.
Indiana Jones. No, I don't understand what that is, guys. Is at the end of the day, it's just, hey, let's piggyback this character off the established guy that you actually give a fuck about. That's all that was. That's all that line existed for. 100%.
Bait and switch. Remember when Indy had a son? Remember that? Remember? And he was like, it was hinted at that he was going to follow Indy's footsteps in the previous
squirreled
movie,
him
and
away.
then he doesn't exist anymore. Let's
Memory
just forget
holder.
about Mott.
Something. On a train during the war. A dial that could change the course of history.
Why are you chasing the thing that drove your father crazy?
Why would you call it a dial as well? Like this goes back to the title, but like it's such a fucking dumb name, the Dial of Destiny.
I know, dude. And with how this is opening up, it should be Indiana Jones and the sensibly priced condo of Boca Raton at this point. It just is terrible, dude. It's such a long-winded title. It doesn't have any of that. Like these are supposed to be kind of a takeoff, right, on the old adventure serials of like the 30s and 40s, the Alan Quatermain and the Golden Treasure, right, and the Golden City and the Lost Civilization of Blegadorf, right? That's what all these titles are supposed to be evocative. The Dial of Destiny? What? Like, that doesn't exactly fit into the Lost Civilization of Zangarth. It not exactly in the same cachet.
Yeah.
It's not
it's
evoking much for the audience,
alliterative,
is it?
therefore it's good.
I'm not even sure what to think of it. Dial of Destiny. What is that?
It's so bad. It's almost too easy to meme. So just how terrible and incommensurate it is with actual adventure titles sort of slips by, honestly.
Don't move.
We need to get out of here. Stop! Sorry.
Well, I guess they need to make it clear that she can adventure better than he can. She's just leaving him behind because he's old and she's better than him. Why does Phoebe Waller-Bridge keep getting gigs? Like, what is her thing? Like, does she know where the bodies are buried or something?
I think the calculation is that in stuff like Fleabag, she demonstrated that she could make not an exclusively male or female audience laugh, but she can make a mixed audience laugh. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is occasionally capable of telling jokes that men will laugh at. And so she's went through this period where she was seen as, I think, this kind of yeah, this golden sort of ticket to movie success. This is how you can do a good, universally enjoyable film, because here's someone who's just kind of funny sometimes, and not in a way that pisses people off. That's a long time ago now, though, and it's a bit like Simon Pegg in that respect. Simon Pegg is now probably well beyond his
poor
talent
Simon.
potential. And it's just sort of, but he's there now. He's attached. He's connected. He knows everyone. He's attached to everything. And what started as just, hey, here's a guy who can make geek stuff funny, has become, it's Simon Pegg. Let's give him control of Star Trek. And it's just, it's laziness, and it's sort of, not nepotism is the wrong word, but it's certainly a kind of ossification, I think, of the talent pool.
Well, I think,
and
well, in his case,
absolutely, the fact that she has a uterus also helps in general, and you can clearly see from space that if this is even remotely successful, or they can even spin this as remotely successful, we will get Indiana Jane and the Temple of Womb, later on. That's going to happen, right? If it's successful, which I think is a fairly remote possibility at this point.
Well, I mean, from what I've heard, like with the amount of money that they had to spend initially on it, and then the very extensive reshoots that have still, apparently they're still going on, this movie is going to be in the $300 million range, just from the sheer, like, getting Harrison Ford back, doing all the special effects, doing all the shooting. There's no way it's going to make that. No way it's going to make that budget back.
Dr. Jones, get him. Hitler made mistakes, and with this, I will correct them all. You stole it. You stole it.
And then I stole it.
This
Can't
is...
really resist the idea of the funny of being like, the villain will be like, I'm going to do what Hitler did, but better.
Again with the Nazis. Like, that's literally what we're doing here.
All the rumors about this were true. Like, it was all going to be about, like, time traveling back to the 1940s, so we get to see Indy during World War II. And the original premise was that he was going to get killed at the end of it, and then Phoebe Waller-Fuckbag was going to take over and like do all the shit that he did, but better. Yeah. That was going to be it. And I don't know if they're going to stick with that, but it kind of seems like that's what they're doing here.
And I like Mads Mikkelsen. Mads Mikkelsen can do a brilliant villainous turn. He's got great presence. He's quite a good actor as well. When he's actually playing a character.
Yeah, playing a character.
The problem is that they don't really do that anymore. Character writing is kind of down the pan, and everything I've seen him in recently has kind of been like a knockoff version of Hannibal. And Hannibal was great, but like I'm happy seeing Hannibal in Hannibal. I didn't really need to see Hannibal in the Fantastic Beasts movie when he was basically playing Hannibal. I don't really need to see Nazi Hannibal in this either. So as much as I love Mads Mikkelsen, maybe.
By the way, he was in a really good Western a few years ago called The Salvation with Ava Green. It was really good.
Back when Marvel movies were a different kind of like annoying or bad at their worst. Like I used to hate like wasting talent was one of the things they did, and Mads Mikkelsen showing up in Doctor Strange and Rogue One, both roles, very limited dialogue and barely any characters. Just like, why the fuck do you hire people like that and then don't do anything with them?
Wait, I actually agree. I don't even think this is a takeoff on Hannibal. This is like just this side of Snidely Whiplash. It's like Snidely Whipmensch, it's like a just generic Nazi guy.
It's like to give it the veneer of legitimacy. It's like, see, look, we've hired competent actors for this movie, so that must make it good, right?
Yeah.
Support it, goddamn you.
It's called capitalism.
Oh god.
This way.
The full line was you stole it, I stole it back. That's called capitalism, I think was the whole line. I was wondering if the film was going to address the slightly awkward modern attitude to, taking artifacts and putting them in museums where they might actually be taken care of, because that's a bad thing. So I'm sure that we'll get a bit more of that, and you don't need that in an Indiana Jones
film. The film really fun and super relatable.
Who wants to set their stopwatch to the exact moment when they will utter the line, "You belong in a museum"? Who wants to set that top?
Oh yeah.
It'll be in the film. Book it.
Wasn't there a rumor that her whole shtick was that she'd be returning artifacts to like the cultures that they were stolen from originally? That was her aim as a character,
Like a
and I could
reverse Carmen
totally,
San Diego.
I could totally buy that. Yeah, because it's like they have to retcon characters like Indiana Jones, like Lara Croft, because how dare you recover valuable artifacts and like preserve them in museums? No, they have to be left in the whatever god awful place that you found them, so that they
We
can
should definitely
decay
take
away.
these ancient Buddha statues and give them back to the Taliban. That's a good idea.
I'm sure they'll take good care of them. All right, let's see what god awful stuff we got left.
Fasten your seatbelts. There might be some turbulence.
You've taken your chances, made your mistakes, and now a final triumph.
Who are you to say that he's made mistakes? What the fuck's your expertise?
Bro,
on
the
this one?
mashup. Okay, are we just going to escape past the mashup of sympathy with the devil and how much it does not fit with the Indiana Jones
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
It's awful. It's unctuous. Who thought that was a good idea?
Nobody wants to see Indiana Jones in like the 1960s when it's a completely different culture and it doesn't fit with the classic adventure serial aesthetic. There's a reason these movies were set in the 1930s.
Yeah.
Like that's the classic age of adventure. We didn't need to see it transposed into the 60s where he's totally out of sync with everything and he's an old man and everything just looks goofy. It's so weird. It's so inappropriate for
I
Indy.
kind of like the idea of a really grumpy Indiana Jones going around just whipping hippies in the 60s at university.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be
Quite
good.
fun. But I think that's the only way you could do it. If you are going to insist on bringing Indiana Jones forward in time, then you have to make him a very grumpy and a very distinctively out of place character who actually has some worthwhile observations to make on the state of the world he finds himself in. But that would involve you in making a kind of implicit criticism of some of the things that happened in the 60s, which no one will do. And so this film won't. And it will also just basic character work, which again the film won't do. So Indiana Jones in the 60s could be used to create a really unique spin on the character. Or you can just put him there and not recognize the fact that he's so out of time and out of place, which I think is what they will do.
Yeah, they're just going to emphasize the fact that he's older. That's it.
Well, I think what they're going to do is they're going to emphasize the fact that like things are better now, and you're part of like an archaic previous generation that's not appropriate anymore.
Yeah, you hit the center target. That's 100% what they're going to do. Look how much more enlightened we are here in the 60s with our sweeping race riots.
Indy! Give him hell, Indiana Jones!
Hey!
Oh,
Gimli!
John,
I know him from the other films.
It's like it's nice to see Jonathan Rhys Davies again, but at the same time, he looks dead inside in this movie. It's like this was a paycheck.
It almost
100%
looks like
just
this,
a paycheck.
that was his like whole scene as he drives up, gets out of the car, goes, "Give him hell, Indy."
Yeah. Okay, you just come over here, Jonathan. Now, we'll get a blanket on you.
A few times in my life I've seen things. I've been tortured with voodoo.
I'm just gonna say as well that CGI looked terrible when they're falling out the plane. That looked really rough.
Wonder if that was one of them pickup shots. I don't know.
There's gonna be a lot.
Been shot 9 times, including once by your father.
Also, they stole.
What the
They
hell was
stole
that?
that. I pointed this out when initially they had revealed this. They kind of swiped the short bus chase through the streets of nebulous Indian City. They swiped that from a James Bond movie. I forget which one. One of the Roger Moore movies.
Yeah, that was
You know
Roger
what
Moore.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about? They swiped that.
But I've been looking for this all my life.
Blah.
Blah.
Okay. I can't wait to not see it. I mean,
McDonald's Indiana Jones.
that's what it feels like. It's so cheap. It's so unnecessary.
How long
Indiana-
has this been in development? I feel like I've been hearing about this for eons.
Yeah.
How long?
it's been delayed by COVID. It's been delayed by Harrison Ford getting injured. Like it's been in the works.
Which
for a
is
long
like a
time.
tradition now. Every time Harrison Ford makes a film, he like breaks a hip, snaps his back in half. He's like cybernetic at this point.
Yeah.
Did the ramp on the fucking Millennium Falcon land on his foot doing like Force Awakens?
Listen,
The
it's
man
obvious.
did the job to a ramp, folks. What the hell?
Yeah.
It's like watching
He's
Biden
got to
climb
be
up
a
the
replicant
stairs.
at this point, you know? How else can it make sense?
The as far as I understand it, right, they did Crystal Skull, and then the intention was that they would do another movie with Lucas and Spielberg. They wanted to do one final one to round it out, and they tossed around various ideas for several years, and eventually Spielberg got bored and moved on to other stuff, and George Lucas just kind of went, I don't fucking know. I don't know what to do with this character anymore. And then just sold it off to Disney and left, and that was it. Like he was done with it. It even took them a long time to figure out something that they could do with him. And of course, yeah, Kathleen being in charge, like the premise of it is that he's passing on the torch to a strong, empowered woman who's going to take over. So, well, shocker, eh?
I suppose that there's one slight cause for optimism. This is the last major Lucas-related thing that they can possibly ruin, isn't it? Is there anything left?
They could always reboot Howard the Duck. Come on, guys.
Well, Willow did so great. So
Well, yeah.
The Great Ewok Adventure. There we go.
Yeah,
joke, all of it.
They must so regret buying Lucasfilm at this point. Like that
It was supposed to be a money
investment has not paid
printer.
off.
What happened? What
Well,
happened?
they obviously had the idea that it was going to be the next Marvel, but like it just, well, that's what happens when you put idiots in charge of it, I suppose.
Not only that, but they got all of that immediate sympathy praise for a bunch of frankly mediocre films that came out, right? Like Force Awakens came out and everyone's like, oh, yay, it's kind of, I remember this. It's basically A New Hope. And then I feel like Rogue One got a little bit of that too, although I think it was a slightly better film. And very, very quickly, the shine was off the rose.
Looking back, people kind of hate Force Awakens as being the start of it all, you know? Like killing Han, ruining the world building, fucking with all this, that, and the other. But yeah, like Rogue One, if they had released Andor right after Rogue One and then maybe JJ did the whole trilogy, I'm curious if there's a timeline where people are still like positive about Star Wars or care about Star Wars. Because, man, doing what they did to Mandalorian recently, it feels like the whole world doesn't care about Star Wars anymore. Because they absolutely killed it. To think.
Yeah, I think it would have just been a different style of death.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah, the version we got, it's not just that people don't really care for any new Star Wars production, in the way that we don't really care about a new Indiana Jones production. It's also that people still sort of do care. They do care enough to very, very vehemently dislike what Star Wars is doing, and they have very bitter and nasty memories about Rian Johnson. So that's care of a kind. Whereas if you give it to JJ all the way through, or you just have a constant like downward trajectory like The Mandalorian, then we probably will you'd still get defenders of Star Wars, I think, at that point. There are still defenders of The Mandalorian even today for some godforsaken reason. And you might get that just to kind of, it becomes a more generic property, but there's still enough people to make it worthwhile making, new entries into the franchise. But with Indiana Jones, that's different. With Indiana Jones, it's just, there's no need for it. No one wants it. We all know what it's going to be. It's not going to be particularly notable one way or the other, I don't think. The best that can be said of it is that it might be notably bad as opposed to just boringly bad.
Yeah, I feel like that's really, I've made this point before. It's not antipathy. It's not acrimony that kills these franchises. It's indifference. Right, and this is one of the reasons I always recommend no hate watching. Right, if you can, now granted, there's something to be said for watching something to see if you like it rather than hating it, whole cloth before you even see it. But sometimes, folks, you don't need to know how it tastes. Right, you don't need to actually bite into the turd to know that it's not going to taste good. Right, it's basically. But I think a lot of times, I think a lot of times it's just getting to the point where you look at this stuff and just can see, oh, I'm not going to get into this. So maybe don't hate watch, I think.
Do you have any thoughts on Andor, or did you avoid it?
I definitely avoided Andor. Yeah.
I can understand anybody avoiding it. It's just that was a
when
surprise.
they kept appending the noir suffix to it constantly, right? Like, Andor is the first Star Wars noir. It's like, first off, I do not trust modern Hollywood to even know what the hell noir is, much less apply it to a Disney property. It's like, apparently just not lighting a scene properly is now noir.
If it's dark, it's noir. Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't give it a whirl. I had heard different appraisals. I had heard better than other stuff that's out there, worse than other stuff that's out there. One thing I know is for certain, most people aren't fucking watching it.
Yeah, no, that's the big downfall of it all, is that if anything good even comes out of Disney Star Wars, which is a fucking stretch, nobody's gonna be watching it anymore. Nobody cares. Nobody's tuning in.
It was probably, I mean, in terms of like the Disney Plus shows that Star Wars have put out, like it's by far the best.
Yeah, but that's not a hard bar to clear, unfortunately. Like that actually undersells Andor. Andor's better than what that sounds. Like, is what I'm trying to say.
It's one of the reasons I'm not watching Picard. I know people are digging it, but it's like, dude, I saw the first 2 seasons. They still play on Pluto, for Christ's sake. Like, I kept getting asked by people, "Are you watching Picard?" It's like, no, I forgot. I had something more pleasurable to do. I had to shave my nuts and teabag a bucket of witch hazel. Like, no, absolutely not. How many times do I need to go back to the same well over and over again? If it's good, that's nice. Enterprise got really, really good at the end. People still don't watch that. In fact, Enterprise got a lot better than Picard season 3 at the end. The last 2 seasons of Enterprise are freaking boss. But most people will never give it a shake. I don't see any reason to jump on Picard now, and I don't see any reason to watch Andor.
Yeah, and I'm still not entirely sold on Picard. Picard does some things quite well. Andor, I think, going back to what Mauler was saying as well, Andor isn't just good by comparison with like the content equivalent of syphilis. It's it's kind of, it is pretty good in its own right. It's deceptively intelligent. I think, you know, in the ideal world, you have Andor's fidelity to story and characterization married with a bit of the sort of the glitz and the pizzazz of The Mandalorian, but none of the nonsense. And then you get a well-written, enjoyable Star Wars thing that no one can call boring, which tends to be the criticism most often leveled against Andor by people who did watch it and didn't like it. I just think it's a shame that more people didn't watch it, though, because eventually you do have to reward these people when they do something right. Otherwise, what the hell in their mind is going to be the differentiating factor? Like, if you say, well, I'm not going to watch Picard Season 3 because Seasons 1 and 2 sucked, omitting the fact that you don't even need to watch Seasons 1 and 2 because it proceeds as like a soft reboot, basically what information is being given to the studio about what fans actually want to see or will pay to watch, which is probably more relevant to them. They don't really care about the franchise, I don't think, but they do care about their bottom line now the era of silly money's coming to an end. So, you know, if you reward them for Picard Season 3, you might get more Picard Season 3 quality shows, or Andor likewise.
Yeah. I think the proper message is that you don't start a show like a giant festering turd, or people won't watch it going forward, right? There's been a lot of shows that have improved as they went along, right? And
I think
the problem that you
for the IP, like if you get 7 bad shows in a row, then you're like, but this one's good. I totally understand people being like, oh, fuck off.
I think when you get to the end stages of a franchise, right, where there's basically nothing left to play for anyway, like this is where they tend to take risks, and they'll say like, well, you like random creator that thinks they can have a go at something and produce something good, yeah, sure, have a go, because there's nothing left to make from this property anyway. And then like a lot of the time they end up producing something really good because they did something a bit different, or they actually cared about it. Probably Picard Season 3 is a good example of that. You know, it's way better than anything that Kurtzman Trek has put out, which again, like Mauler said, is an extremely low bar, but it's genuinely pretty good entertainment. But again, no one's going to watch it because it's the 3rd season of a shitty show that everyone's hated so far. It's not going to win people over, but it's nice to see that it can be done. I guess the question is, how do you go about encouraging more stuff like that? Because that by itself isn't going to turn things around for Star Trek, but more things of that level of quality will.
Yeah, if you launched a new show, if you launched a new Star Trek show that was the equivalent quality of Picard Season 3 from the beginning, I'd watch it. I would have no reason not to, right?
But a lot of what makes it work is that it plays on member berries. It plays on the history of the franchise, the characters and stuff. And when you don't have that to work from, when you've got a whole bunch of new characters that you just have to try and make work, it's a whole different set of problems that you're facing. And I think a lot of the people that are working at Paramount now don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's changed hands so many times. The original people who worked even on the last successful wave of shows have sworn off the industry. I mean, you have to also remember that there was all those legal battles towards the end of Star Trek's lifespan. It wasn't just that they stopped making Star Trek shows. It wasn't just that Enterprise got canceled and after Nemesis they didn't want to make any more TNG movies. It was also that there was this huge legal battle with CBS and Paramount, and a bunch of people didn't get paid and had to sue. People who worked on Star Trek back in the day didn't get paid some of their residuals and royalties, and there were tons of legal battles. So some of those people will never be involved in Star Trek because they literally took the owners of the IP to court. So you're never going to get that, really. You could find somebody new, I guess, who has a similar passion for it, but you're never going to get those guys back in the saddle. The most you'll get is them talking on a special features on a Blu-ray or something at some point.
I meant to ask as well, because we skipped past it when we were talking about the new Star Wars stuff that was coming out. But like we got the trailer for Ahsoka, and I was curious to know what your guys' thoughts were on it. And forgive me if this was discussed while I was away for a minute or two.
I think it's just telling that we all forgot that came out, so we just moved on to talk about something else.
I forgot it as well. That's why I brought it up now. It's like, oh yeah, Ahsoka was a thing as well.
Yeah, it's the Filoni point again. It should be the most consistent of all of them. It's his own characters. It's the ones he's worked with for ages. He should know what he's doing with them. The couple of problems are A, that he can't write, apparently, and B, he's going to be using references to characters that exist in the animated shows that comparatively few people have watched anyway. So if he's doing big character payoffs to people that no one is actually familiar with, what's the point? It looks like The Mandalorian in terms of its production values, I think, from what I remember of the trailer. So it looks well produced and well put together on a visual level. It's just, is it actually going to be worth watching? We're going to see Grand Admiral Thrawn come in, which, he's a great villain in the old expanded universe, but what will he do to him in this one? I would like it to be brilliant, but that's almost guarantees that it won't be.
Yeah, Thrawn is the, hey, here's your fan wank, guys. Come back and watch the show, right? That's 100% what that is. Just like we were just talking about Picard, same idea.
So unbelievably trackable at this point. TFA comes out, and if you guys remember, if you can roll back to then, a lot of the promotion was on how this ain't going to be like the prequels. Fuck those. This is going to be good Star Wars. No politics, guys. No crazy nonsense lightsaber fights. This time, the lightsaber fights are going to be raw. They're going to be people slapping them against each other like angrily. None of that weird ballerina stuff. And you'll love it. Oh, you know what? Real sets, real like aliens, going to be great. And then as time went on, I remember it was Mandalorian Season 1, and I want to say the promotion for Rise of Skywalker had some of the music from the prequels in it. And you had the droids, the CIS were being brought in as storylines. It was like, oh shit, are they drawing from the prequels now? Like Disney, prequels are kind of cool, aren't they? I think the prequel, you like the prequel. And then I think that culminated hardcore with Kenobi, where it was like, look at this, guys, more prequel content. Come on, we're getting flashbacks. We got Hayden back. You love him. You love Obi-Wan. You and McGregor. Let's go. And now it's like you've drawn everything out of all of the eras. Everything's gone. What's left? It's like, well, what about that extended material that we nuked? Did anyone like anything in that? It's like Thrawn. That's one of the biggest things people liked in that whole thing.
Oh, God. You just reminded me. I can't believe I even forgot that Obi-Wan happened. Jesus
exactly.
Christ. Isn't it amazing?
They're fucking vampires. They're grabbing everything.
Oh, that was some more of the positive news that actually did come out of Star Wars Commiserations, is that Kathleen Kennedy was asked about the prospects of an Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 2, because I know Ewan McGregor had said that he wanted to go back and do another one, because sadism, I suppose. But she said, no, that's not in active development. It's not at the forefront of their mind. We probably won't be getting one of those anytime soon, to nobody's disappointment whatsoever.
Yeah, except Ewan McGregor's, because he's got a lot of child support to pay.
Some people saying Thrawn was used in Rebels. Like, the thing is, Rebels wasn't seen by a large amount of Star Wars fans. Like, if we're talking about the live action, the main stuff, even the TV shows, I'll accept. A lot of people haven't seen Mandalorian, or some people didn't even fucking watch Boba Fett. They were like, which has Mandalorian episodes in it. Some of the most significant continuity changes happen in a different show. It's absolutely fucking insane. But From what I've heard from fans of Rebels, they did not like Thrawn, his appearance in that. So think of that as foreshadowing, folks, because that's what you got coming to the live action one, I'm sure.
Oh, but he's going to be played by Lars Mikkelsen, who played him in the animated show, so there's continuity there. And it's also because they wasted Mads Mikkelsen on Rogue One, as mentioned earlier. He would have been a much better casting choice, I think, but too late for that.
That's the name that immediately came to mind for me, actually, and I was just surprised.
I will say I like Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. Like I did like her in The Mandalorian. I thought she had a good presence about her. I guess my issue with the trailer is like, man, she sounds so fucking bored. It's like she's saying all of her lines like, I'm just going to read this off the script and I have no idea what the context is meant to be. It's like, I get
Is she Michael Caine with memories? Is that what's happening here? She's in a lot of stuff.
She is, yeah. Well, she used to be in movies, but I think she's transitioned to TV shows now. And now she's just in, like you say, like a lot of stuff. I mean, she's pretty hot. I'll give her that. But
and there you go. That's why he's slightly approving of this show. It's like, well,
she's never going to get them out, though. That's the problem. So what's the point, really?
They're the size of a tangerine. Anyway.
God, not the tangerine chat again. But I don't know if they what they were going for was, she needs to be super composed, super stoic, just like full on Jedi mode. But like, there's a fine line between that and just disinterested and disengaged, and I feel like the trailer kind of goes over that score. That's my slight issue with it, but. It looks nice. It looks epic. There's like loads of epic music and stuff. But when I see what they've produced, I just have no faith in its ability to be good, to fulfill that promise. It just looks like another piece of Disney Star Wars content.
It's now that we know they probably actually have some plan of trying to make all this culminate somewhere. It's all the same production, right? Like the thing when you watch
the
Andor,
Filoni film, I think, isn't it? That's the one that's
When you watch Andor, you're like, oh shit, a different team made this. Like this isn't the team that made Mando. But when you watch Boba Fett, and fucking Kenobi, and Mando, it's all the same shit.
It's a franchise the size of a tangerine.
Let me guess which one is Ahsoka going to slot into? The Mando type production or the Andor one? It's like, well, we already know. It's a Filoni thing. Favreau's probably an executive producer as well.
This is our great hope, isn't it, for fixing Star Wars? And it's like,
I do wonder about the girl comment as well, because if there's going to be a show which does sort of prime girl boss stuff, it does look like it might be this one, just from what I recalled of the trailer.
It'll be the Acolyte, apparently.
Oh god, yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah,
well, that's the thing. Everyone fucking forgets about all these shows because you hear about them, and then it's like 10 seconds later you forgot that anything even happened because like they're so unmemorable. But like, if I had to pick one that's going to exemplify everything that Kathleen Kennedy wants out of Star Wars, it's going to be the Acolyte. Because you've got the cast even getting interviewed about it and saying like, yeah, well, finally it's going to be told from a female perspective, because clearly that's something we lacked in Star Wars up until this point. And I think they even said like it's gonna be told from the point of view of the villains.
Come on, did anyone see Luke Skywalker's hair in the 70s? I think we've already seen it from a female perspective.
Yeah, it was a different time, man. It was feathered and lethal back then.
Right.
But that is what we've got in the world of Star Wars, and well, I don't know. I can't say I'm excited. I don't think anyone is.
It's still staggering, though. I mean, it's been said a billion times, but it's still worth saying because it is still staggering how it can reach this point. You go back 10 years and you say, we're going to get Star Wars shows set in sort of the old Republic era and the High Republic era, and we're going to get post-Empire, and we're going to get Thrawn, and we're going to get this, that, and the other. And it's like, and how the hell have we reached the point where the uniform response is, oh, yeah, that's happening?
Yeah. It's unbelievable. And it's like, it was such a simple formula to play with, right? Like how many years when all of us were growing up, did you go to the local drugstore or grocery store or bookstore and see an entire swath of new Star Wars books? And they'd come out every month, right? all you had to do was hand some workman-like writer a premise as basic as, we're going to follow the adventures of the Rogue Squadron. And every month, like clockwork, or every few months, you'd have a new book. This person would just follow their adventures. We can't just do something as simple as that. Do you have any idea how much money you would print? Just, hey, let's follow the adventures of the Mandalorian. Let's follow him as he bounty hunts. And every single season's going to be a different bounty who's more difficult to wrangle. And there'll be twists and turns and characters he meets along the way and travails to overcome. And so, like, it's so simple. You almost have to make a concerted effort to fuck it up.
Yeah.
If hack writers writing old yellow paperbacks in the 90s could get this right, how can a billion-dollar corporation not? Unbelievable. Has to be intentional.
I mean, if their intention was to tank the franchise, I don't think they could have done a better job.
Yeah.
With what they've done. It's been impressive. Should we do a few super chats? Since we're here and we've got the ability to answer questions. So, Northern English Bastard says Bella Ramsey is gender fluid, by the way. Apparently she is. Yeah, we got the interviews with her. Whatever, good luck to her, I guess. Yeah, her and Pedro Pascal apparently bonded over talking about gender and breast binding and stuff. Nothing weird about that whatsoever. Yeah,
That
while they
sounds
were
like a
filming.
horrific conversation.
I don't really know where it could go. Like, I don't know what you could really add to that conversation beyond a certain point. But I guess they found a way.
Pedro Pascal's interest in that area?
I think his sister is trans. So he's got something going on there, but yeah, I'm not really sure what he can add. Waylon Bucephus has got a question for us: Saving Private Ryan or Band of Brothers? If we had to
That's
pick.
not fair.
Two different things. Band of Brothers had more time to get cranking, and so it could explore more ideas. Saving Private Ryan, probably as a central self-contained entertainment, maybe I would put Saving Private Ryan on top a little bit, but Band of Brothers got to be more expansive, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know. It's apples and oranges, or apples and tangerines.
Yeah, tangerines. I think in terms of the quality of the combat scenes, like, they are pretty close, and that is impressive for a TV show of that period, because you're talking almost 20 years ago now. Like, the fact that they were able to get battle scenes on par with Saving Private Ryan in a TV show was pretty damn good. So I think I might put Band of Brothers first.
Yeah.
Same, I think.
I'm gonna go with Ryan on it. I just fucking love that movie.
That's great.
Yep. Stephen Bobo says, question for Nick Rakita. Sorry, he's not here right now. But if normal human beings earn superpowers, will the government issue a version of the Superhuman Registration Act in the real world? I think they probably would have to, wouldn't they? They would have to be regulated somehow.
For crying out loud, I have to pay the government every year to 2 years to continue to use my own freaking car. You think they're not going to regulate people with laser beam eyes?
There'd be the superhero tax, wouldn't there?
I was going to
It's
say,
like
they've
you
got to
gotta
find
pay a tax,
some
like-
way to tax it first. Tax first, regulation second.
Right. Right.
There was an old Reagan quote. I can't remember it exactly. It's something like, if it's alive, tax it. If it's still moving, regulate it. If it still moves, nationalize it, I think is the way it goes.
Chucksenhausen says, Drinker, this Saturday I turned 36 and I just wish for you to talk about Cobra Kai's upcoming final season in a future open bar, showing how respected the fans is a winning formula. It certainly is. It's my favorite show and deserves the love. Yeah, I mean, I think the final season's coming out towards the end of this year, I guess, so that would be a good time to talk about it, probably. But yeah, it's interacting with your fans and showing them respect and doing a bit of fan service. It's amazing how far it takes you. Dark Hour says, Little Platoon's apparent omnipresence further supports my ongoing theory that he is indeed the first true sentient artificial intelligence.
I know some people who might dispute the sentient part of that, but I can't refute the rest.
We've never seen you on screen, so we don't actually know if you're a human. It's just a chatbot, like, generating dialogue for you. Stephen Bobo says, question for Razorfist. Do you still believe that Final Fantasy VII Remake is still worse than the original Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy 13?
I never said it was worse than them, actually. I said it was not really the same game. Like it was a hack and slash, really, at the end of the day. It really wasn't a role-playing game. And also what complicates is we're still waiting for the rest of it. Right? Like the game came out in, when was that? 2020? Something like that? 3 years later.
A couple of years ago, yeah.
Yeah, second part. So it's like we're not even sure how they're going to handle the story. But the gameplay, yeah. I actually found myself longing for the days of turn-based combat because I hate that Final Fantasy 15 being able to switch fighting styles on the fly, it's like, ugh, could anything be more anathema to role-playing than being able to literally change your role with a push of a button just in the middle of combat? Like, you know what I mean? Like, aren't you supposed to pick a role, cultivate that role, play that role? Isn't that the whole concept of a role-playing game? So yeah, anyways. But yeah, that's sort of a misrepresentation of my original assertion. I didn't say it was worse than them. I said I found myself longing for the days of yore with the turn-based combat.
I hate to say it, right, but I found myself feeling emotions when I played the remake. And I didn't expect it in the slightest because I thought it's just going to be another fucking cash grab remake and it's just going to be, you know...
And I pointed this out. Yeah, I pointed this out in my review. I actually thought the way that they understood. One thing they really got at Square was, oh, what really was the selling point? Was it the role playing? Was it whatever, or was it just the characters? The characters that everyone dug. Obviously, the main selling point for Final Fantasy VII, at the end of the day, was the characters. So they basically cut out all that pesky role playing. And I feel like double, triple emphasized the characters. And in that sense, they pulled that off. And I actually did mention that in my review, incidentally.
No, it was a weird experience playing that. And like you say, because we've only got a fraction of the story so far, it's all going to depend on how they handle the next game. Because there's a lot of stuff that has to happen now. And I don't know what they're going to do with it. Because the way they've set it up, anything could happen now. It's like they've broken off from the original timeline and they can go and do a whole different bunch of stuff.
I worry about where they're going to go with the spirit penis ghosts that are whatever is going on there. I don't know. And Sephiroth popping up at the end of every game because apparently it's the law.
I love the idea that you can literally punch Fate in the face. Like, fuck you, Fate! It's great. It's like, God bless Final Fantasy for stupid moments like that. Waylon Pacific says, my mom doesn't like it when I shake my baby brother's hand and says I should wait till he's born. Oh, God. Anyway, True Grit 2010 or 310 to Yuma? What would you choose between those two movies?
Ooh. Okay, I assume you're talking about remakes?
Yeah. Yeah,
the
True
original,
Grit.
the originals, I would put the original 310 to Yuma is really good. The remakes, I think I would go True Grit, although I really like 310 to Yuma. I actually have the same pistol as the 310 to Yuma guy with the cross on the grip, and I actually own that. But cool movie, but I think I would put the True Grit remake just because I love the dialogue in that. It's like the closest thing to the dialogue in Deadwood with the kind of Victorian profanity.
Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely
There's
love
something
that.
about that payoff though of Russell Crowe just shooting down all of his own men at the end of that. Like, I just love it so much. Like after that whole
it's such
story.
a great movie. It's like choosing between your children because I love both movies. But I think I would put True Grit a little bit above it.
McPulton Face says, Drinker, in your Nope video, there's an excellent comment by Philippe Montero that you should definitely check out. Also, did you see that Elon Musk BBC interview? Well, funny you mentioned that. We covered that. But yeah, I think I remember his comment. It was something about like how when predators are feeling threatened, they'll basically puff themselves up like a peacock, and that's what the monster does at the end of Nope when it faces off against the main characters. So yeah, I mean that kind of fits. Like it's kind of an animal. It's not. There's not like a huge amount of intelligence behind what it does. It's just a predator like looking for weak prey. So an interesting movie. But
That's the thing about Peele's work. There's sometimes one or two things where I'm like, huh, I kind of think that's neat. Like the imagery or even the sound of the UFO moving across them above, and you can just hear like a crowd of screaming from people who are stuck inside
Yeah.
it. I was like, damn, that's really creepy. I
and then
like
the
it.
blood rains down on the house. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, you've just literally digested them and you're pissing them out. I think the most memorable parts of that film are like the bit with the monkey when it loses its mind and like is attacks the cast members. You get the flashbacks. The
I'll say
weird bit
this,
with the
way better than Us.
yeah, oh yeah. But yeah, an interesting movie. Like I definitely I enjoyed it more than I disliked it, if that makes sense.
What an endorsement!
I know. Chuxenhausen says, Razorfist, your video on Abe Lincoln is accurate.
Thank you.
All right.
Ambient Space Noise says,
That one pissed off the entire internet, by the way.
what was your premise on your Abe Lincoln video?
It's just a calm, even-handed take that Abraham Lincoln was America's first dictator. That's all.
Okay. Nothing controversial then.
Nothing controversial. It was funny to see
The
that.
habeas corpus stuff is tolerably well known by Americans, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you would think it's funny. I think Europe has this down a little better than we do because English press was very, very critical of Lincoln in his own time. So I think some of that still survives a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in America, not so much. I mean, I don't know if you've been to the Lincoln Monument, but he's basically sitting in a throne, if that's any indication of how he's seen.
Oh, I know it well because of Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
I thought it would be the Transformers movie.
Oh, of course, that too.
It's a hell of a monument, but it is slightly overdone when you're stood right next to it. It's like, damn, this is big. Like,
right.
I think my favorite is like when you go to the Capitol building and there's like this weird statue of George Washington, but like he's shirtless and he's got like a fucking six-pack and like big rippling pecs. It's like, that's weird, man. That's really weird.
I love it.
Ambient Space Noise says, would love for Drinker, Mauler, and Razor to set up a stream solely to discuss Unforgiven, Blade Runner, and its awful sequel. Long live Pinochet.
Oh, dude, any day. Any fucking day.
I would love to.
I think we'd all like to talk about Unforgiven. We could definitely do a stream on that.
Did you see the Japanese remake?
I've been meaning to. Is it good?
I've heard it's good. I have actually heard that it's really good.
It's Ken Watanabe,
I've
right?
seen bits and pieces.
So yeah,
I was gonna say who could you like equal Clint Eastwood with? And it's like, okay,
Yeah, unfortunately,
Ken
a lot of
Watanabe.
them are dead. You know, the guy who played Sato in Black Rain, remember that movie? Would have been cool. They have some macho actors in Japan, but unfortunately, they're all dying off.
When I think back to Unforgiven, though, like talk about a cast. You had Clint Eastwood, Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman, all in one movie.
Richard Harris
As well. Yeah, like god damn.
That movie.
We're not going to see actors like that anymore.
Not going to see movies like that anymore.
Yeah,
It was kind of the culmination of all those movies he had made beforehand. It was sort of like it had the sort of spookiness and the weirdness of like Pale Rider and High Plains Drifter, but then it was like it had that script by, actually we just mentioned Blade Runner, same writer as Blade Runner, David Peoples, and just amazing script. And so it like took it to that next level. I remember seeing an interview with Clint Eastwood who said like he didn't think Unforgiven was as good as Josie Wales, and he thought if Josie Wales had come out in the 90s, it would have been bigger than Unforgiven, which is kind of weird. If you go back and watch Josie Wales, I think he's got a point.
Fair enough.
I think though, yeah, I love this idea that like Clint just took it upon himself to say like I'm saying goodbye to the Western genre, and I'm speaking on behalf of the entire genre. It's like we're done now, and we're just finished. And like that movie just essentially ended the entire genre in Hollywood.
And then Tombstone was like, "No, you don't."
Yeah, but it was a funny one. Tombstone. It's like, I don't even know how to sum it up. It was a very 90s take on the Western genre.
Yeah.
And
it was like realistic, but not really. Right? Like it was that kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely. And Wyatt Earp is not as bad as people thought it was. It came out around the same time.
I'd say I feel like the most 90s Western is Quick and the Dead.
I was gonna. Yeah, I knew you were gonna fucking bring that movie up. God damn.
Oh,
Yeah,
by the
that-
way, I should probably mention I've got a Western comic coming out pretty soon here. We're gonna be dropping the details on that in like a week on Friday Night Tights.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look forward to that then.
Yeah.
Capital Lunar says, "Hey Mauler, have you thought of watching the 1993 Mario movie for EFAP Movies? It has that unintentionally funny and cheesy vibe to it."
We're gonna do that back to back with the new one when it's out. It's gonna be funny to watch them back to back. Friggy's our like resident hyper Mario fan. He never saw the '93 movie. I was like, oh my god,
What?
I can't wait to show you that shit. Like,
I'm not even that much of a Mario fan, and I saw that. Jeez.
he didn't believe it was real. He somehow completely missed it. I showed him a picture of one of the Koopas, and he was like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "Yeah."
That is the only correct reaction to have to the Koopas in that movie. What the fuck?
My favorite thing about it was crazy when you're a kid, you think everybody is just original names or whatever. I love when you become an adult and you realize that all of Koopa and his children, hell, Koopa himself, it's all references to heavy metal and rock and roll guys, right? Koopa is Alice Cooper, and Lemmy is one of the kids, and right, like they're all, because all the people who made these old Nintendo games, they're all metalhead geeks in Japan, right? They're all, because metal's huge in Japan, or at least at that time it was. So I love that. I absolutely love that.
What's the next one? Slack Attack says, "I feel many modern writers are afraid to put limits on themselves, creatively speaking. Like the Prime Directive from Star Trek, they refuse to obey rules and create challenges to test their skills." Yeah, I can believe that. Like, why have like pre-existing universal rules for the world that you're working in when you can just make shit up as you go?
Right.
I mean,
even I talked about Enterprise earlier. Enterprise takes place before the Prime Directive, right? But the writers were still halfway decent enough to kind of allude to the fact that eventually there's going to be a Prime Directive. Like, people are catching on to the fact that we're going to need one. Because like they interfere in this society or that society. I think there's an episode where there's some plague and they literally have a cure for it. They're like on Enterprise, but they realize we'd be interfering in the evolution of this species because there's another one that's about to become dominant, and this other species is just sort of slowly dying off. And if we cure them, we're going to fuck that all up. So it's kind of like a pre-Prime Directive kind of idea. So even when you break the Prime Directive is a good plot device because you have to at least weigh it, and you have to weigh the ethics of your decisions. That, I think, is the problem, is modern Star Wars writers don't really want to talk about those kind of issues at all.
Well, I think, like TLJ is the perfect example of like just fucking saying, forget the rules, like we'll just do whatever we want. Like, so, hyperspace trackers. Okay, you can track someone through hyperspace, but then... then there's going to be times when you need to get past that, and so you can do hyperspace skipping in the next movie, or you can cloak your ships apparently, but then we need to find a way to discover them, so we've got like a decloaking scan. Like, it's all just constantly rewriting shit to whatever situation you need to have in that particular moment.
Will there ever be a more like, I don't know, just deeply obvious version of that than the kamikaze, the Holdo maneuver? Like, you still get people being like, it makes sense in universe. Just admit that it doesn't. Like, stop.
I know.
Like, no, it was really skilled. Okay.
And I love how that was supposed to be a great big feminist moment, even though distilled to its essence, they crashed the ship the moment the woman was allowed to drive.
Yeah, it's like, women are bad drivers.
I've always loved the whole like, you can't repeat it.
And then they did it again in the next movie with the Asian woman driving.
Well, I would love to have her try and park it, and she just fucks it up and crashes it into a dock or something.
Because you had it's a 1 in a million shot, and then they actually show it happening in the background of the fights in Rise of Skywalker. I have no idea what the point JJ was trying to make in terms of the writing. And saying it's 1 in a million means, in canon, Holdo was trying to escape and she fucked up.
Yeah,
that's all that means.
Yeah.
It's certainly more probable. But you'll have that problem going forward as well with everything else that they do. So in Rey's movie, for example, what will be the excuse for her not calling on the souls of all the Jedi that she can commune with now at a moment's notice? How
that was a one in a million moment.
That was also a 1 in a million moment. But
Maybe
the
they'll
Rise of
make her
Skywalker
charge
can't even
up for
account.
it. Oh,
Sorry.
no, sorry.
Oh, no, it's because the Rise of Skywalker can't even account for its own mechanics within its own film. Palpatine says, "Kill me so I can inhabit your body." So she kills him. And what? I mean, the only interesting thing they can do with Rey in the next film is if it turns out he is actually in her somewhere.
I want, you know what I want? I want
Regret
some
that
kind
choice
of
of words.
I want some kind of resolution to, like, at the end of Rise of Skywalker when Palpatine gets obliterated and all of the, like, tens of thousands of Sith that were apparently watching this from, like, a football stadium around them just kind of went, "Oh,
All right.
oh, I'm gonna head home, get a cup of tea. See you later, guys." Like,
They'll-
what the hell
they'll
happened to
probably
all of
just-
them?
They'll have her keep the power because you can't take any power away from a female character anymore. Maybe they'll just make her charge up for it for 9 episodes, like Goku with a spirit bomb or something. Right?
Maybe. I think her struggle will be that she doubts whether she's worthy of the power, but then she realizes she is, and then
Imposter
she's
syndrome.
amazing.
Really, she's more worthy of it than anyone. Think
She is. But I mean, it's the problem with rules, going back to the point of that super chat, is that people will occasionally, if you're writing something, you will skip over rule building and world building stuff because it seems like it's difficult and it seems like the payoff isn't worth it. But it's so much more difficult to write stuff on the hoof when you've done something with immense mechanical significance like the Holdo maneuver. To then try and account for that, you probably have to sit there in the writer's room for a good little while before someone just says, "How about we just say it was 1 in a million?" And everyone else goes, yeah, why not? It's not easy to do. There's a reason, like great fantasy writers, Tolkien being first among them, one of the first things he did was create the maps, create the world, establish the relationships, establish the language, establish all the rules, because then all you need to do is tell the story. I say all you need to do like it's easy, but you just need to tell the story within a world which basically functions as though it's an independent entity at this point. It's what Dungeons and Dragons as a game is quite good for, because it gives you rules that you need to make your character fit mechanically within the universe, so you don't have to do those calculations yourself. Everything then is just story and characterization. So it's easier to begin from a position where you've actually established very clear rules and a very clearly defined world to tell a story within that. If you just make it up on the hoof, you will do what, well, any recent J.J. Abrams film has done.
Yeah, and actually they did that earlier with Star Wars. If you were talking about Rebels earlier, which I didn't catch a whole lot of Rebels, but I did catch the episode where they invent like an anachronistic death laser and put it on the B-wing starfighters that didn't exist in any of the movies and shit. And if anyone's wondering why B-wings aren't in any of the new movies, that's why, because they'd have to have a stupid death laser on them that makes no sense and kind of breaks the continuity. It's so stupid, but it's a classic example of what you're talking about here.
Here's a question for all of us. Elsie Le Pen says, "Good day, open bar. Honest opinion, if the Mario sequel can have an A+ plot with Illumination's low bar and Nintendo's tight leash, I wonder if that's a pipe dream." I don't think any of us would say that it's got an A+ plot. It's just
It's more
it's
of
got
a
a-
crack
it's
pipe
got a-
dream.
it's got a
it didn't make
basic
you want to
plot
die
that
when you
makes things
watched it.
happen.
That's all.
Yeah.
Which is
I
something.
think it's got all the just classic beats of a story that you would expect, like a hero on a quest. He has to learn, he has to struggle, he has to prevail against an enemy. It's pretty standard stuff.
If you could make a slightly more complex, I guess, Mario movie, if you did like a Legend of the Seven Stars, like a Super Mario RPG kind of an idea, because that had a pretty good story. It was kept simple. It was definitely directed more towards kids and adolescents, but you could do it. Like you could expand it a little bit more.
I've heard as well that like the original draft of the script had Peach, like Princess Peach, basically doing everything, and Mario was just like this incompetent sidekick that just like fucked up everything around her. Nintendo basically vetoed it and says no, he has to be good. He has to at least learn, and he has to be able to do stuff and save the day, and that's what you end up with. And so you've got a movie that's on track to make $1 billion. Gee, I wonder what people want to see.
It
The
would
right
be.
tack-
And it's not about the gender roles. It's about bad writing too. Because if you switched places, it would still be unctuous. If you had a movie about a female hero and then a dude came in and just did everything for her, it would be pretty dull, right? Because they're not the central character. They're not supposed to be the fulcrum for plot.
Well, I watch a Mario movie because I want to watch Mario save the day. I would watch a fucking Tomb Raider movie because I want to see Lara Croft like raid tombs and be a badass and be an adventurer.
If Daniel Craig's character in the Lara Croft movies had done everything for her, how shitty a Tomb Raider movie would that have been?
Yeah.
Right?
More shitty than what we got.
Yeah, right?
So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, if it's based around a character, like, make that character your protagonist and let them be a hero. Like, don't always feel like you have to subvert it. That's,
and also, you know, if you're redoing a Mario film, have a bit of connecting tissue and something that kind of resembles a story to begin with would be an improvement. The film annoys me. I get that it's enjoyable. I get that all the fun references. I just think it's probably not a good sign that you're going to get $1 billion movie, which is probably going to kick off a whole slate of Nintendo films, which is just the safest of all possible things. Of course, you're not going to feel like you want to die when you watch it, because if you don't try anything with your plot to begin with, then you can't really do anything wrong. Take a few risks and you get a bit of reward. Okay, maybe the film bombs because you can't write plot, but I would still have preferred to see a Mario film that actually fleshed out some characters, put half the number of characters in, half the number of references, took twice as long to do it even, and actually came away and tried to linger in the minds in a way that's not just superficial fun because I remember watching King Bob on back in the day.
Yeah. Can I just throw out 4 words too for why I won't watch the film?
Do it.
Seth Rogen, Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong's my favorite Nintendo character, and they cast him as Seth Rogen.
I will say, like, having listened to it, like, you wouldn't really know it was Seth Rogen.
Yeah. Does he do a voice?
I don't know what to describe. It doesn't sound like Seth Rogen as he normally is. So, like, I wouldn't have connected it if I didn't know he was in the credits. But yeah, to make the
so Donkey Kong's not saying weed, bruh.
Yeah, exactly. I love for Little Platoon, like, your benchmark for a good movie is like, well, it didn't make me want to kill myself, so
that was my benchmark.
that was Mulder's benchmark.
Sorry, yeah.
It was a good movie. I teeter on exactly what I think of the Mario movie because it's like not filled with fucking plot holes or anything. Cartoon physics aside, like it's very inoffensive.
I love. Well, that's the idea. It's like if you don't have a plot, then you can't have plot holes. Smaller.
If the Power Star confers upon you superpowers, why didn't the Penguins use it when they were fighting against Bowser? If like Mushroom Kingdom is undefended, why does Bowser need to do anything else to get to Mushroom Kingdom first? The star doesn't actually end up playing any role in Peach's proposal because she rejects him anyway. Mario and Luigi immediately know how to use the thing, even though Luigi's never been through the training sequence to set up all the use of power-ups. None of that breaks the film in any way, and it doesn't. I want to stress, I don't think it's bad, but in the video I did on it, there's a comparison with the reason the games are so iconic and successful is that, and the reason they don't feel like generic platformers either, there's a distinctive Mario feel to them, is that a lot of care and attention goes into how you write, even ostensibly plot-free games. They use this writing structure called Kisho Tenketsu, I think it is, which is like this 4-act structure. It doesn't rely on conflict. First act is sort of introduction, second act is development, third act is a twist, which doesn't require conflict to work, and then the fourth act is resolution, and that goes into level design in Super Mario games. And as a result of that, Super Mario games are culturally iconic and incredibly memorable, and they'll be made for years, and they'll keep making memories, and you can keep going back and play Mario 64 if you want to, and it's still really good fun. But none of that thought and attention goes into the Mario film, which is why the film will not have the same kind of cultural legacy and impact and memory as the games did, which I think is a shame because it's missed potential. It doesn't make the film bad or unenjoyable, it just means it could have been a lot better than it was, and I wish that it had been.
I don't disagree.
Fair play. The Right Tackle says, "Happy Thursday, boys! Can't wait for the Doom Eternal film adaptation starring Phoebe Waller-Bridge as the Slayer." I mean, we all hope for that.
Right.
Grimnack says, "Hail Jets! Return of the King Extended Edition is in theaters today for the 20th anniversary. Anybody else going? I'm pumped."
Wow, they'll be able to pack 2 entire screenings in a single day into that one. Jesus. What is that, like 5 hours long?
I thought that was the end of the year as well. That's when the anniversary would have been, because every Lord of the Rings movie back then was released in like December, wasn't it?
Yeah, it just reminds me that they needed to break those movies differently. I love them all, by the way. I love them all, including Return of the King. But I always felt it should have been broken like the books, where you had Shelob at the end of Two Towers and ended on a cliffhanger with Frodo maybe being dead, and then jumped into Return of the King. They packed too much stuff into Return of the King because they didn't do that, right? It made it a bloated film. It made it really, really long.
Well,
Especially
I mean, they didn't know how to end it, because you had like 5 different endings, and yeah, they tied up things like the.
So, I watched that movie in theaters in a ethnic neighborhood, and the every time there was a new ending, you would get the vocalizations from the crowd when they realized it wasn't actually the ending. Right? Like literally by like the third one, the couple in front of me were like, "Oh, this is bullshit." This is shouting it at the screen. That is the only way to watch that movie, by the way. It was fucking fantastic. Deeply entertaining.
But yeah, like you had things like the Battle of the Pelennor Fields getting wrapped up very, very easily just with the Army of the Dead, and it's like, yeah, okay. They had to cut corners in some places. Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. Like they could have spread things out into Two Towers a bit more, perhaps.
Yeah.
Hostman Socrates says, "Hail to the Drinker and Longman. Congrats on the All-Star panel, and hail to Razorfist, hail to Rakita, and hail to LittlePlatoon." Thank you very much, man.
Hail
Appreciate
to
it.
Rakita.
Yeah.
Wherever he may be.
It was great to not see him. Next one is David Lamplow, who says, "I'm expecting Rey to have a gay black apprentice who will have a forbidden romance that will last for 3 films, and the villain will always lose. Modern Star Wars sucks, and the whole creative team needs to go." I can't think of anything to argue with that in that statement. I would fire the entire story group if it was me. From the same guy, he says, "Grogu scene pisses me off at the moment. Run out of ideas, insert cute Grogu is the pattern. Filoni has sacrificed all good Mando stuff to push forward the Bo-Katan, and now Ahsoka, his Clone Wars brainchild."
Pretty much. I've even seen people say like, "Well, put him in the mech was a really good idea, and I love it, and I'm so happy to see that." Like, drink it because you haven't seen it. They're gonna they get into a fucking war against Mandalorian stormtroopers. By the way, yeah, yeah. And Baby Yoda's just there, and at one point, Mando is like, "You gotta stay and keep up with us as we run for our lives, okay, Baby Yoda?" And it's just like, "Okay," and it's like, "What the fuck is a baby doing here?"
Well, there's the scene earlier where they volunteer to go. Mando volunteers himself and Grogu explicitly, which is his established pattern of taking the baby into the situation it just doesn't belong in. But the stupid mech suit, we've already seen in this show that in the little egg thing, Baby Yoda can get away from anything. It can fly, it can go really quickly, doesn't have any terrain problems, whereas now he's in IG-11's hollowed out corpse. Every time they have to move anywhere very quickly, they actually have to take other Mandalorians and jetpack him away, which is even less usable than the egg was. But it's still a very entertaining show. I'll give it that. It's fun.
So, I mean, is IG-11 meant to be his Iron Man suit, basically? He can just do anything in that
now.
Okay.
And kind of. Doesn't have any guns. I thought they were going to do that, but they didn't do that. They just sort of walked around.
He just has buttons that say yes and no.
There's that too.
Yeah. Elsie Le Pen says, "The Little Mermaid remake storybook is out. Enjoy coming through it for what's coming in the movie. 2 guesses who defeats Ursula with a ship in this one."
And the star of the film can keep an eye on one page and the other at the same time.
That was uncanny, wasn't it? That scene, like, people were saying, like, "Is this photoshopped?" It's like, no, that's what her actual face looks like.
No, they were saying she's a chameleon, but
it's like your eyes exist in different postcodes. RRTNZ says, "Hail Drinker and Co. Hope you talk about the best fuck yeah fan service scene of 2023 as Patrick Stewart finds his old Picard voice. The Star Trek Next Generation theme swells, and the Enterprise D rolls out for one last glorious ride.
He finds his old voice?
Well, I mean, he's been old man Picard all this time, and like, yeah, finally he gets to have a little bit of gravitas again. He gets to be Jean-Luc again. But yeah, he's still like 900-year-old Patrick Stewart at the end of the day. He does his best though. But yeah, it's nice to see people catching up on this stuff and experiencing episode 9 of Picard. It's good stuff. A lot of member
old man
berries.
Picard and hair plugs Riker and and wine ant Deanna Troy.
I love how Deanna doesn't sound remotely like Deanna anymore. She's just Marina Sirtis with her weird half British, half American accent. I don't understand that one at all. Next one is the critical abstainer, who says, "Hello, drinker. I thought Razorfist should know that it is confirmed that Daisy Ridley and Brie Larson both love pineapple on their pizza." I can believe that.
Makes sense.
I believe it completely. They do seem to enjoy a fruitcake.
Mike Ox Huge says, "Is this the Razorfist that fought Shang-Chi on the bus in the movie? That guy was called Razorfist too.
Yeah.
Best scene in the whole garbage movie."
I couldn't believe he was in there. That was unbelievable. I heard about him after I started having the name. So the name is from playing fighting game tournaments. I needed a name. I just pulled it out of my ass years ago. And then I heard years later that it's a Marvel character, which is hilarious because I worked in a comic store at the time and still didn't know this. He's that obscure of a character.
Next one is Mike. Dickie McKeesix says, "Oh my God, is that Styx Hexenhammer on your panel?"
Not quite.
Nowhere near that handsome.
Yeah. Then a bunch of questions from Joshua Levesque says, "Thanks, Drinker, for such an entertaining show every week with great guests, and thank you for being a kind, friendly, open, supportive channel owner. Cheers, man. Thank you very much. Also, some advice: never drink too much paint thinner if you have to work the next day. Trust me, it doesn't end well, especially for the employee bathroom." Yeah, you're preaching converted here. And hey, Mauler, any plans to do a Jedi Survivor EFAP?
I didn't play the Fallen Order, or I did for like a couple hours and got bored, so it's probably not going to be something that we check out. From what I hear, the games are good. They're just, I don't know, there's not enough style, spice in them to get me to stay attached to them.
They definitely suffer from every modern game ever syndrome. They just like, hey guys, we have to have collectibles because collectibles. Hey, we have to have hack and slashy pseudo RPG gameplay because it's the law. Right? It's like it was all made in a focus group, basically.
I think it benefited by being not shit.
Yeah,
like it came out and everyone thought, "Oh my God!"
at all those things.
Yeah, it's competent. It was slightly overpraised because it wasn't as terrible as the most recent Star Wars thing to come out around the same time. I've played it a couple of times. I think it was okay. Didn't mind it. Probably will play Jedi Survivor when that comes out. Its basic storytelling fidelity is good enough, I think. And yeah, this is modern Star Wars, so good enough is exceptional by comparison.
Right. Congratulations on a job done.
Liam Khan says, "Drinker, since the Law Pope won't do it, we need you to review The Blade. God fucking speed."
The
Okay.
movie Blade?
I guess so, yeah. Mr. Lucas says, "Happy Hour Star Wars OT with Mauler and Platoon. Drinker, what do you reckon?" So, yeah, would we do a happy hour on the original trilogy of Star Wars? I mean, I guess.
You said you don't know what is to be said about it at this point, but I mean...
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what can we say? They're good. We like them. You know? It's like, can you do a review of Citizen Kane? Yeah, I could. What can I add to the discussion at this point?
Right. You know? It's always hard because I've been asked to do like action movies that are universally considered beloved, and it's like, no, I want to do the shitty one from the bargain bin because no one's done that yet. Like, what are you talking about? Right?
I don't want to do something different.
I don't want to do Rambo and Die Hard. I want to do like Showdown in Little Tokyo.
I want to do a happy hour with Space Ice. I just want to talk about some Steven Seagal movies with him at some point. It's fucking great, that guy.
I've already done Above the Law, Out for Justice, and Hard to Kill. Those are the ones. Hard to Kill. Those are the ones I've done so far. By the way, do you know the rule of Steven Seagal cinema? It's the only good movies are the ones where the movie poster starts with Steven Seagal is.
Yeah.
Those are the only ones.
Yeah, that lasted until the mid '90s, didn't it? And then it just
Steven Seagal is hard to kill.
Yeah. Steven Seagal is a human fucking waterbed. Anyway.
Steven Seagal is slowly transitioning into Count Von Count from Sesame Street.
Here's a good question for everyone from Wayland Pacephus. For Drinker excluded, who here does the best Scottish accent?
Definitely not me.
I'm not going to include the critical doggo in this one. She can sit
Go on,
this one out.
Platoon.
I cannot do a Scottish accent. I can't. My mouth doesn't work that way. Sorry.
It probably fucking is me, but I don't know. Just because I do voices that are dumb as fuck all the time. I can do Fat Bastard from Austin Powers. That counts.
Oh yeah, I can do that. I can.
Perfect. Yeah, that's all you need.
I can do that.
There you go.
Look
That's
at
every
my
Scottish
stick
person
tip,
ever.
Yeah.
Get in my belly.
It kind of looks like a baby.
The other white meat. Okay. The Fixer says they can't keep getting away with this. I think that could be a reference to anything at this point.
Yeah.
Modern cinema. Dragon Paul Z says, how would you seriously approach Rey's new movie? So if you were handed the task of writing a Rey Skywalker movie, what would you do?
Are we not allowed to decanonize? I'm assuming that's thrown out.
I'm just going to drink while you gentlemen do this.
Yeah, frame 1 is Rey's funeral. The rest of the film,
You have like celebratory gungans going like,
"We's a free."
Yub Nub intensifies.
Wait. Can we? So you get like a really quick montage of like the previous like events of like the sequel trilogy, and then it flashes to Gal Gadot getting out of the shower naked and just going, "Wow, what a crazy dream that was." Anyway, like, what am I gonna do? that's how I start.
All right. That's a good prologue. Maybe we can put that at the same time as the crawl. You know, she's just naked on the front of the screen. Taking Star Wars in a different direction.
Yeah, I think there's potential there. Hit me up, Disney. I'll sort you out. Anyway, Dragon Paul Z says, also, can we get a shout out for Baby Leia roasting the trenchcoat scene in Star Wars Celebration? Yes, apparently, yeah.
That's
if
great.
If a 3-year-old can like recognize that it's stupid, then yeah.
Yeah, she said while they were filming, she was just like, "How is anyone gonna fall for this? How does this work?" It's just like, oh my god, she's like 5 years old. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I can respect that, but at the same time, she did that getaway scene from like the bounty hunters that were sent to get her, and she thought that was okay.
So that scene too.
Yeah, I hope so. Anyway. Intelligent Crayon Eater says, for Nick, so he can't answer this, but can we get an update on the Reedy Creek legal battle and whether Iger conflating Disney with Reedy Creek will have any legal ramifications? Yeah, that one I don't know about. As far as I know, though, it's still in trouble. The Gourd King says, so excited for The Marvels, aka the Merry Suicide Squad. That's pretty good, actually. I like that one. Got 2319 says, Hail Drinker, how do you differentiate between bad and good action movies with no plot? Films like Pacific Rim, Godzilla, Mad Max, John Wick, Transformers, etc. all are about fights with little plot, yet some are considered better than others. I fucking dispute that. Pacific Rim has got a plot. It's a dumb plot.
To say that the 80s action movies have bad plots is to imply that they even fucking need them. Come on. Death Wish 3 is a masterpiece, and I defy you to locate that film's plot. I defy you.
Commando is just an excuse to get Arnold shirtless, firing a machine gun, mowing down wave after wave of guys. There's occasional like nudity in it as well. Like it's just like it's just there to facilitate the action. But if it's predicated on
and then he launches that assault on Evil Bastard Island, right? And whatever Vernon Wells is doing, that homoerotic nonsense, whatever that is. I don't know.
I love the idea that a podgy middle-aged man thinks that he can take on Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime.
Dude, the scene in the murder factory at the end where he's like, I'm gonna kill you right now. I'm gonna stick the knife in and I'm gonna twist it, right? Like, look at Arnold. Look, your arms are pipe cleaners. What are you doing?
It's when he's like facing off against him. He's like, "You're getting old, John. You're getting old." It's like, motherfucker, have you looked in the mirror anytime recently? Like,
you want to put the knife in me? You want to see what's going on in there when you turn it?
Yeah. But that's great. Like, those films had charisma and they had fun going in their favor. Like, that's
By the
what
way,
you need.
who wrote Commando? Famous comic book writer.
Oh,
Jeff Loeb wrote Commando.
really?
Yeah, Jeff Loeb, actually the executive producer of the Daredevil show and all those Marvel shows, but we won't talk about them.
Holy shit. Did not know that. Next one is T1S says, I know it hasn't started yet, but female Space Jesus, i.e. Rey, and diverse female Space Jesus, Michael Burnham from Star Trek Discovery, versus all three Marvels. Who would win? So if it was those two versus like Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and Ms. Marvel, who
Can we
would
not
win?
just take off and nuke the site from orbit?
Yeah, whoever
I think
bets
so.
against that movie making $100 million.
Well, I think it's very much like the Aliens versus Predator tagline: "Whoever wins, we lose."
Yeah, the audience.
You know?
loses. No shit.
I would put my betting on the triumvirate of the Marvels, because when you got Ms. Marvel on your side, Captain Marvel on your side, she's just basically Superman, but without the kryptonite. She can destroy anything.
Yep.
Stevie G says, challenge issued. As proud sons of Scotland and Wales, if a director was to choose one for the role of a lifetime, who should they pick? Drinker arguing for Sean Connery, Mauler for Anthony Hopkins.
Wait, what? How does this? What is the scenario?
I don't really know.
I think he's asking you to both stake your case for one of these two actors being the best. So Mauler, you have to argue Anthony Hopkins' case, and Drinker, you have to do Sean Connery's case.
That's not fair. I'm just automatically going to win. It's Anthony Hopkins.
Well, you're forgetting the fact that Sean Connery is the living embodiment of everything that is, was, or ever will be masculinity. I don't think Anthony Hopkins can match that.
Well, I mean, his competition is if not the greatest actor of all time.
If I had to put them in a fight with each other, I would put my money on Sean as well.
Dead.
Anthony's not far off.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Him lately.
It's like the 90-year-old versus the corpse.
Please, Sean Connery's hairpiece can.
All right, well, if we go back 30 or 40 years, I think Sean would take Anthony any day of the week until he dies.
We all just go along and we make a movie together, huh? What happened to those?
That would be nice. Yeah, that would be good. Next one is Blue Collar Loser, who says Drinker Platoon and had Dark Hour on 2 days ago on his stream. Great chemistry, even though I saw Mario twice and hate them both. Lol. Dark Hour had great practice with you. Nice.
Dark Hour was very nice. Good streamer.
Yeah, he's doing the rounds. It's good. Yeah, I had him on for a happy hour, and we did Last Action Hero back in the day, as I recall. So that was a fun movie to discuss. It's such a weird film, actually, when I look back at it now. I don't know. It was like ahead of its time in some ways.
Oh yeah, it was very meta in a not bad way at the time. Actually, very like self-aware for its time. You know what? Another movie from the 90s that kind of fits in that with the whole action genre kind of parodying itself while at the same time embracing it. A movie that people should go back and watch because it has aged pretty well is Escape from LA. It's not a bad film at all. The part where I don't see how people don't understand that it's supposed to be a parody of action films when he literally surfs a wave down Sunset Boulevard. like at the quarter mark or whatever.
I think people can't. I think people can't look past the CGI at that point. But yeah,
that is true. It was mid '90s CGI, but
it's such a weird follow-up to Escape from New York because that was such a pared back, restrained movie in so many ways, and like to get Escape from LA where it's really goofy.
It was intended as a parody. It was a parody 20 years ahead of the curve on creating a parody of 80s action movies. That's what it was. It's totally what it was.
I'll do a couple more and then finish up. George the Giant Slayer for $100. Thank you, man. Says Marvel's trailer equals friction in space plus CW level dialogue, along with 3 of the most disliked characters in the MCU: Ms. Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and Big Toad Bree. Then Star Wars is going to be saved by Rey. Drinker, are we living in the Twilight Zone? All hail, have a drink on me. Thanks, man. And I feel like I'm caught in some weird purgatory now where entertainment is just caught on this endless loop. You know, I feel like I'm back in 2019 again. We're talking about Rey Skywalker and we're talking about Captain Marvel. Like, are we ever going to escape this horrifying nightmare that like entertainment has become?
Dude, we're rebooting reboots at this point. Like literally, I can't wait for the Rageaholic reboot where I play the aging mentor to a black lesbian Razorfist. I know that's coming.
Well, I mean, like, she has to humiliate you and be better than you at everything, obviously. You know.
Oh, of course, it goes without saying.
Ultra says, would you talk to industry people from other work? I don't know what that means.
What, like, I mean, garbage men?
Yeah, like, I'll talk to steel workers or, you know, like foundry guys or whatever, like shipbuilders, whatever you want, really. But,
just head down to the docks and have a chat.
I'm gonna live stream it. Yeah, just like fucking throw a microphone in the face of a random like dock worker.
What do you guys think about Star Wars?
Yeah. Did you see the Ahsoka trailer? But yeah, like when it comes to people in the industry, yeah, I'll happily talk to them. You know, my door is always open. You know. Max Bolton says, hi Drinker, I too had sleepless nights over the prospect of Rey not coming back. Now I can sleep for the first time in months. Hope everyone is good. Well, we are now because we know that Rey is going to be back again. So
in Rey we trust.
Yeah, it's fuel for like 1,000 YouTube videos, I guess. Kaiser and Gilroy, I'll make this my last one actually, says, one day my wife told me that a live action version of Brave is on the horizon. I could only roll my eyes and groan. I'm sure Erin Kellyman is the front runner to play Merida. Fuck off, Disney. Now, I don't know who that is.
It's got to be Freckle Jesus, right?
It's got to be Freckle Jesus with that fucking ridiculous ginger afro. Whatever offenses she committed against the gods in a previous life is being repaid now. But yeah, Disney, stop trying to make that fucking actress happen. She's not going to happen. God. But yeah, I wouldn't put it past them to remake Brave, a movie which made absolutely zero sense. And as a Scottish person, the plot made zero sense. Like, it didn't tie into folklore or anything. It was baffling.
Sorry, it's just, as a Scottish person, the plot didn't make sense. Like, Scottish people are uniquely positioned to understand plot. Like.
Only we understand logic. No, in terms of like, I don't know, understanding Scottish folklore or culture or whatever, it was just ridiculous. Yeah, but well, there you go. That's Disney in a nutshell, really. But yeah, I know that we've been streaming for a little while now, so like getting close to about 3 hours now. So I'll finish up there with the super chats. But gentlemen and Doggo, I want to say thank you for joining us tonight. It's been absolutely fantastic to have you all on board. So much appreciated.
Hell yeah.
Thank you.
Razor, I know you said you got a comic coming out. Can you tell us much about it now, or is it still kind of under wraps for the time being?
We're gonna drop more details pretty soon, but I can say on April 21st, I'm gonna be on Friday Night Tights to sort of roll out the formal reveal and some preview pages. I can tell you it's a Western, and it's called Ghost of the Badlands. And I think you're gonna enjoy. I can tell you this. The artist is George Alexopoulos, whose comics a lot of people see it online. He illustrated my last book, Death Mask. Really, really good artist. And we're having a blast making it. So I'm pretty stoked to reveal that. But yeah, in a little over a week, something like that, we'll be able to drop the details on that.
Nice, I like it. There was there was chat there saying like the doggo was the best person here. Like,
My dog Cicero popped into the stream a couple of times.
Yeah, I saw him. Yeah. But yeah, thanks guys. I thank you to everyone else who's joined us for this this lovely little open bar tonight, and all the super chats. Thank you very much for your generosity. We really appreciate it. And any ones that we've missed tonight, we'll do on our usual catch-up stream. And yeah, thank you to my mods for doing their usual awesome work. Very much appreciated. And thanks to the Critical Doggo. Your input on this one has been invaluable. I'll give you a treat later. Don't worry. Anyway, that's all we've got for today. So go away now.
Bye.
Godspeed.